And hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday Weekly, number two of the Altered Weekly Online League stream, also known as AWOL, brought to you by ABC, the Altered Broadcasting Coalition. Again, please don't sue us. I am Blue, as you definitely should already know, and joining me today is a new co-commentator, Jalex. Or did I say that wrong again? I don't remember. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing really good. My name's Jalex. This is my first time working with the stream. Excited to be here and watch some awesome altered gameplay today.
Yep. Forgive his 1970s webcam. He's doing his best. And we talked about it before. I was wondering if it was something wrong on my end, but it is in fact
I,
not.
I built this myself out of Ford Model Ts, so I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be too if you managed to do that. But at the end of the day, we're still watching some altered. We still can see you, and that's a benefit compared to the Monday stream, thanks to Pandy Andy, which was looking amazing, by the way, Pandy, if you're watching, by the way. Either way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the setup here that we got going today. Wednesday stream, we're about 8 minutes away. Looking like we're hitting the 40 player mark. We're not EU, so we don't have quite as many people. In fact, I would imagine even there's a lot of EU folks signing up at this time, including did we get Keelan guy last minute? He signed out
Some people, yeah,
14 minutes ago. Wow.
solid. We will take it. Yeah, definitely would love to see some of the American players showing up and showing out to rival those European numbers. But, as the scene is growing here, as we're getting into some of those new promo packs and letting people know about the game, I did just see that news about the programs in some of the US cities to get games up and off the ground. So hopefully we see some good results from that on behalf of the company.
For sure. And we do have quite a few people joining in here last minute as the numbers creep up a little bit.
Love to
But
see it.
yeah, but yeah, past that, anything in particular that you would be looking for as far as heroes, new cards, or anything of the like for this event?
Yeah, well, I've definitely been cooking a lot with Rin and really liking that. And I've basically not touched my Afanis deck at all. But, tuning into a lot of these streams, checking through 39cards.com for deck lists, still seeing a lot of Sigismar, a lot of Afanis, Tasia, Fen kind of creeping at the top tables. And then you see these couple of rogue heroes getting their way into the spotlight, some Basira, some Sierra coming back from the dead. So I'm definitely more interested in some Rogues Gallery today, but would not be surprised at all to see the popular heroes still dominating. They just have so many tools at their disposal, and Trial by Frost has made that even more possible.
Yeah,
What
for
about
sure. I mean, I think it's interesting, especially with this last weekend. There was a tournament in Italy. I believe there was like 100 and some players there, and it still was a majority Sigismar and Afanis in the top cut. We did see Basira make it there, and it did look like there was some popularity increase, specifically for the entrance for Kojo and Buddha. Was the top entered hero for the event, comparatively even to Sigismar and Afanis. It didn't convert over as well. Obviously, only two Kojo players made it to the top 16, but it's nice to see some people giving Bravos a shot at the very least, and eventually seeing the Basira make it to the top 8, I believe. You'll have to watch my video that I just posted today if you want to check it out. Either way, we are about 5 minutes away from the event start. Any particular individuals that you may have your eye on? I don't know how much you've dug deep into the AWOL setup here as being a new co-commentator, but anyone you're looking at to make a mark?
certain names are popping out to me, folks that I've seen throughout different streams. I'm still sort of learning some of the teams and other folks who have, distinguishing marks by their name. I'll be looking forward to getting into them more in the future. So nobody in particular standing out right now. Glad to see some familiar faces. But yeah, just excited for what's to come. How
Yeah,
about yourself?
folks. Yeah, I mean, there's always good to see like reoccurring names. A lot of EU folks here. We have a lot of different names as far as team names popping up. We do have an updated dossier of that we may be able to talk about a little bit as we talk in general about this stream. In the chat, they did mention Sierra as far as heroes are concerned. I think that's
Cool.
the first deck that I mentioned that I started building in Trial by Frost.
Mhm.
Haven't really had a time to do another one yet, but it has been fun. I think it's quite interesting the idea of larger cost permanents and the reduction of removal for them potentially. And there also is some new cards introduced in Trial by Frost that can hit them, which one of them being Lost in the Woods. I said it right this time, I swear.
Nice.
Um, and the like. So I'll be curious to see what that balance looks like moving forward. Like I mentioned in the Italian tournament, the Sigismar that ended up winning did run quite a few Trial by Frost cards, usually in the removal side of things with hypothermia, I believe, even a rallying call on a Sigismar. So it'll be interesting to see what people can come up with.
Yeah, I'm looking through some of those lists and I'm seeing triple rallying call right now, two hypothermias, couple of rare tiny jails. Pretty good setup as far as the removal goes from the new set. And of course, Hound. Love to see that guy. Um, yeah, I think that this is going to be a good showcase for some trial by frost cards, but also, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. With a lot of Aphanis, you're seeing maybe a piece of Moth to a Flame there somewhere. I've seen a couple of new uniques making their way in, but I mean, it's a pretty tight package already. Good removal, sticky creatures. That's about all you need.
Yeah, when it comes to Faunus, I think Moth to a Flame is definitely the most common addition from Trial by Frost. We do occasionally get maybe a rare sleight of hand, as far
Yeah,
as an out of faction is concerned, but mostly we see that Moth come out specifically because technically you can just boost itself, get a nice 3/3/3 on board. Even better from reserve because it costs one less for you to set up. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what that comes forward. I'll be curious to see if the Sigismar is potentially dominant on the Wednesday side of things, or if we're going to see a resurgence of Tasia, maybe even a Bravo setup that we mentioned before. We are currently 2 minutes out from the start of the first round. We are in the Altered Weekly Online League Season 2, Wednesday Weekly number 2, waiting and waiting for more people to join. It looks like we are up to 45, a solid group of people, more and more EU folks, more and more teams getting involved here as far as players associated with teams. I guess we can talk a little bit about those. Some of the new teams being added since last week. One of them looks to be KRA, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Well, I will, I guess. Cre- Creb? I don't know. It's French. Um,
on some of the names, I'm going to do a little quick look too.
yeah, and they are cultivating a spirit of camaraderie and competition. Captain is Azanald. Second is Kaifu, and it looks like they have another saying, "We can't wait to see where this adventure will take us." So they're planning on evolving together. They have a nice fleur de lis, it looks like, of some sort for a logo.
Very
And
nice.
yeah, it is a fleur de lis. And yeah, nice color. It's blue of all things. So big fan of that. We are 1 minute away. We may get to see them play a little bit. I did not see them on the list, but we
Yeah, I'm
definitely
only
have
seeing
some
Kaifu
others.
right now.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some others that we're going to watch along that timeline. And we did hit the mark here for round one. Let's do a little refresh to see who we're going to watch first. All right, we're waiting for all those arts to load for a second here. Let's go ahead and just start in right away with one of the team base folks here. On table 11, I think we'll start with AQZ Ryan and
Yeah.
Fat Imp. And we are in game, so I'll switch over for all you lovely folks. And it looks like the screen got messed up once again, so I'm going to adjust that for everyone.
While Blue's getting set up, it looks like we're looking at a matchup between Kojo and Buddha versus Teja.
It's amazing how this can change every single time that I set it up, but, we do what we can. That'll work for now. We do have the Kojo and Buddha versus Atasia, AQZ, Ryan, Fat Amp, AQZ obviously is the altered quarantine zone. We've mentioned them before. They're a bunch of players from a bunch of different regions that seem to not have a local scene of their own, so they made their own little group and they're buddies.
Yeah, always good to see folks banding together and learning to play the game at a higher level. Looks like Kojo's bursting out of the gates with our first turn Buddha token and going to contest both zones. So that's exciting.
Yep, still 2 mana left as well, so we'll see what
Yeah,
else they have to play here. Potentially
we got to
going for that 2-0 and countering that Sneezer Shroom that we just saw come out from the Tasia.
start taking bets in the chat versus intimidation or a new character. Looks like a little Chiron action.
Fun
So,
Chiron. We don't get to
yeah,
see the typical tiny Jin in the Chiron, but Axiom Salvager isn't quite too bad.
some things are too good to be true, you know? Oh, okay. So we're still going to make it into progression on both sides here. Coach are taking a bit of a lead, and obviously the advantage of keeping your Sneezer Shroom around is going to make things a little bit more difficult, but never hurts to take 2 expeditions on the first try.
And of course, leave it up to a Bravos character or hero rather to get a 2 advance while giving up another advance. I've seen the 2-2 before while playing Bravos. Seems like it's a fairly common thing, especially when you run into Lyra based heroes that have that 0 stat showing up. So
Oh, absolutely.
when Keeneland
Muna will hug
guys
a tree, hug a fox, and hug their opponent all at the same time, as long as you get a
exactly.
double progression.
And Keelan guys mentioning the KRA folks that we mentioned sometimes don't use the team tag. They're incognito. They don't want people to know they're on the team. We do see a rare Muna Druid coming out. Don't see that
Ooh,
very often.
definitely
Typically,
not, but it looks great here with the shroom.
yeah, typically only used for the stats with the quick effect of anchoring. But yeah, like you mentioned, we get to see a plant boosted up.
Now, between that and the rare Muna caregiver here, I'm starting to feel like we might be seeing a lot of reliance on keeping a single guy around for a long time. So I would expect looking into some aloe vera here and maybe even finding some Yetis somewhere in this list. Yetis are a really good way to just push that advantage all the way to the top.
Definitely, it's almost like the strategy I've seen some folks when playing, starter decks before they had other cards where they just
Mhm.
typically tried to anchor one character and keep on boosting it up, maybe some physical trainings, even though you don't get the draw in Muna,
Yeah,
but still, nonetheless, we may get to see that Sneezer Shroom stick around for a little bit. It is not the rare Sneezer Shroom, so it will not get a boost at noon, but,
doesn't seem to
still
be
plant.
slowing him down.
Fun to
One
get to
of
see the new token coming out for Buddha as well. Glad they used the new ones when they updated BGA.
oh, for sure. I've heard some folks really liked the promo token from season one. Got a little of sassy scar action, but this one's nice and lets you know it's going to be coming blazing out of the gates.
BGA, when are you going to allow us to pick our tokens? Come on, probably not, but still, it would be cool.
Going to make custom brass bugs.
Yeah,
Got it.
that was another thing at the Italy tournament. The guy who ended up winning on the Sigismar was using a Lokinox token for his Ortis recruit.
Oh, is this a paper tournament?
Yeah, it was.
Ah, that's super cool.
Ooh, a Scotty coming out. One of the new cards for Trial by Frost.
Yeah, Scotty's just got some good stats on the front end, and then exhausting a card from reserve. You know, it's a sabotage light, but often if you're getting their most powerful card, then they're going to be forced to lose something on that second turn anyway. So still get some card advantage out of that regardless in most situations. And sometimes you can just completely cripple an opposing play if they were planning to get that card out and it was pivotal to that turn. I've certainly had that happen to me a couple times.
We do have Dracena. I don't pronounce things coming out
I
here
like
in
Dracana.
yeah,
Sounds nice.
coming out on the companion side of things to potentially advance out of that starting setup. but we do
Ooh,
see the Haven Warrior, the beautiful 444 stats in the rare version come out.
Even Warrior is more than happy to squash a plant-based dragon.
Still 2 mana left for the Tasia player, though.
This is true. Could see a little sleep action, or we can just anchor our shroom into eternity. That's fine too.
May see a pass. We would be looking at a 1 for 1 for right now if we, don't see anything else played.
Yep. Kojo keeping that advantage for now.
Always a good thing to have as a Bravos player, particularly against a Tasia that can keep so many characters out. They will have 2 moving forward into the next day to potentially try to catch up to the Kojo.
So now we see what the long pause was for here. A rare Chiron's going to give multiple characters a boost, which is not going to quite get us there for the progression on the companion side, but still a nice pump on both of our anchored characters. Can't be too mad about that.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered if they decided to boost the Chiron itself, so opting instead for the anchored characters that can keep those stats on board makes sense. Potentially trying to go for a 2-0 on the next day while the Kojo is ahead on the Tumult and has to get rid of quite a few cards in the reserve here, running a little bit low on resources.
Yeah, it feels like that tends to be how this matchup kind of goes. I definitely am always trying to prioritize running my opponents out of cards when I'm playing something like Izmir, and Tasia and Kojo tend to be a little more susceptible to that strategy, particularly in the Beyond the Gates meta. Nowadays, you're getting some additional tools here. One thing that I'd really like to see out of the Tasia player here would be the Floral Tent. Floral Tent allows you to resupply for a single resource and also will protect your characters that are anchored. So, with a strategy that's as aggressively costed towards anchoring with all of our rares that we've been seeing, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Floral Tent at some point. And as long as we're the turn player in that situation, we could get a lot of protection value out of that.
Yeah, I'm honestly not quite too sure what to expect from this Tasia player in
They're pulling out a
general.
lot of interesting pieces. I like it.
Yeah, there's quite a few different rares that we're not quite used to seeing. So, yeah, I mean, realistically, anything can pop up. Haven't seen too much as it pertains to Beyond the Gate, not Beyond the Gates, but Trial by Frost for the Tasia. Quite a
Hmm,
few for the Kojo player, but we'll have to see what pops up for the rest of the game.
definitely. Now, with Tasia having three more resources here, it looks like we're advancing into a Haven Warrior, and it's kind of a tough nut to crack on the Kojo side of things. They have the resources to keep going, but uh, on this particular board, with the benefit of the anchor from last turn, Tasia is definitely looking in command.
See the Mana Reaping come out.
Yeah,
Makes sense to get rid of the stats, but it puts the Kojo in a spot where they're going to be 2 mana up on the Tasia moving forward, with the Tasia deciding not to mana this current day in order to keep both of the cards in their hand. So even if Tasia is able to 2-0 here and take the lead, they will be pretty far behind and are gonna need to push pretty hard in order to win the game before the Kojo can catch up with the additional mana.
yeah. As the Tasia player, I'm feeling really good that turn for a double progression, but at the same time, our opponent was already one expedition ahead, and now we're looking at a turn where, as you said, we're down several mana, and also if we play, our opponent has the priority on their Scotty to get rid of whichever card in our reserve seems to be the biggest nuisance, and from there, we're kind of left with what's in hand. So we might be looking at a double progression from Kojo this turn with access to that Buddha token.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see moving forward how folks are able to utilize the exhaust mechanic. I've seen Jack Frost be used before, not so
Yeah,
much the Scotty, but
the rare.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a pseudo sabotage in a way without being quite as good, but I can see the value for it, particularly if you have good enough stats like the Scotty does for the 2 cost from hand. and then you just have to pay a little bit extra to play it from reserve. And we do see the rare Clute come out. Is
Clute was an absolute monster during pre-release and also draft from what I've seen so far. Seeing it in constructed is no surprise. And as you see here, pretty big body and also going to cause some trouble with exhausting cards in reserve.
deciding to play the Clute first, though, will mean that they don't get their priority on what they want to set up as far as the exhaust is concerned. But
Yeah, they kind of forced the issue there with either option and
yeah,
just request that. But yeah, maybe hiding the information if we are planning to also play the Scotty this turn. The opponent might get a little greedy, play something from hand, and then you get the double exhaust, which would be pretty backbreaking in this position.
yeah, interesting that for that, it makes me think that there might be potentially some more plays from hand rather than with the Scotty, because more than
Yeah.
likely they would only be able to play the Scotty by itself unless we were working with some type of helping hand Kojo, but not quite too sure if that's the case. They're taking their time as they decide here, and we will see something else from the hand, and
Oh, nice.
it's the Magic Sleigh. Always a nice surprise to get a double advance.
Absolutely. In this particular position, that really highlights that play and why it was so good here. We're more or less guaranteeing the power of the hero expedition is going to be strong enough for that double progression. And from there, we're at match point. So that feels pretty good from the side of Kojo.
And we do see that floral tint that you mentioned before coming
Yeah,
out
two
for the
for one.
Tasia.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Two of them set up, getting some nice resupplies to get a little bit more as far as resources are concerned, and why not throw out a Ogun and get that Sneezer Shroom buffed up some more.
I've been playing card games for many years. I love a good quote do nothing value engine, and floral tent with a little protection on it fits the bill and then some. That card is fantastic.
So we're coming off of a Buddha turn for the Kojo, so they won't be able to immediately compete on the companion side with the Sneezer Shroom. We may be looking at both players with so limited resources going for another one for one and taking their shot in an arena tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, I would be definitely okay to see that. I just got a comment. I love the animation of the Magic Sleigh rocketing ahead to expeditions. You don't get to see that kind of movement on the tumble very often.
Yeah, it zooms really fast forward. You think that
Yeah.
they would do a little hop hop, but nah, just it zooms. It just goes
Yeah.
straight to it. So we'll wait for the Kojo player, AQZ Ryan, to decide on a mana here. Technically, they don't have to. They are still ahead as far as mana resources are concerned compared to the Tasia, but
Yeah.
they will not get to play first, so they won't get to decide potentially an exhaust here, whether they decide to go with either the Clute or the Scotty, but only one card in hand for the Tasia at this point.
Yeah. It's going to be pretty rough here to see us moving forward. One possibility that I think might work well is if we have drawn another piece of removal on the Tasia side, either that's Lost in the Woods or Mana Reaping. Um, both of those options would remove a character if placed in the right zone. Here, our Kojo player is putting it into the zone where Lost in the Woods would not be a threat. So good to see that. Play thinking ahead here. Um, Especially when you look at the board, you see a 4 in forest. You might be tempted to throw that onto the hero side and just sort of shut out the uh, Hydrocana here. But this was a more heads up play and takes away some of the opponent's outs.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Tasia decided to go to the hero expedition, potentially not being okay with just a tiebreaker setup here. And playing that Sneezer Shroom out as well will mean that that's all that they have left on board. So it's really up to the Kojo at this point with 5 mana to potentially take both sides or at least block on the hero side and take the victory.
Yeah, I mean, Kojo decks definitely have the resources here. We could see something like a Scotty into an Intimidation after Tasia has already passed priority for the turn, and then we get to move into the tiebreaker round. But just kind of have to see what happens in hand.
Ooh, a rare Bravos Rescuer coming out. I was a big fan of the common Bravos Rescuer in sealed format. Just nice stats at 144, but
Mhm.
133, you may target another fleeting character and it gains 2 boosts, which is nice with the Occlute because it would typically add another exhausted setup, but at this point it doesn't really matter, it seems like, especially with a Fire Rabbit coming out.
Yep, Fire Rabbit's going to bring up the extra resource, and that's going to slam the door on our hero expedition for Tasia advancing in water. And it looks like we're going to see the single progression from Kojo to close the game.
GG's to both players. It was fun getting to see all those new cards from the Kojo player, seeing what
Yeah,
you can do with some new resources.
and not only that, but such a fresh mix of cards from our Tasia player here. You know, the only new card we saw, I think, that entire time was the Floral Tent, but with the way that card operates, it's enough to make you really rethink everything you knew about how to set up that deck. We're seeing a lot more cards with raw stats that are boosting our plants. And then also, when we get an anchor off the top of the deck via that Floral Tent, the value on that goes up so much higher. So, really cool to see that interaction.
Yep, so we go back here to take a look at what we have left as far as games are concerned. Anything standing out to you in particular you want to take a look at, or should I just pick one at random?
I would say pick one at random because I am still getting used to maneuvering around Board Game Arena from the commentator perspective. So I'll let you take the reins and I'll just talk a little bit too much.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at table one. Easy, it's right there. Pull it up, see what we got going on here. And oh, you know what? That may be the reason why it's working. Oh, let me pull this here.
This Zine versus Vegeta Q.
Yes, it is.
Let me see if I can click it. All right.
And we are in.
The
Let's go
same
back.
match, but a different setup of cards here. So Tasia looks to have a pretty strong board as we're joining.
That's
And I'll wait
interesting.
until the screen is up before I reveal any more.
We are up on the screen, but interestingly enough,
Fantastic.
for anyone that is planning on commentating, if in fact you are not logged into an account, the adjustment of the screen changes things, and that's why things were moving on my end.
Oh,
And it went back to the original setup that I had before. So always be logged in, folks. The guy that made all this stuff is still learning new things about BG, and for some reason the screen moves around when you are not logged into your account. The more you know.
that's pretty neat. And good to get around that bug in the future. Or not bug, but technical difficulty, let's say. Hello to the folks in chat who have joined. Good to see you, and thanks for hanging out. Now that we're on the game, we just saw a poor aloe get taken off the field, and this giant Shenlong. I have tough 2, and from reserve, you can discard one of your mana orbs to discard target character. So that explains what happened to our aloe and why there's such a commanding presence in the companion zone for Kojo.
Yeah, for 5 stats, that's pretty decent just from hand. You don't get the reserve ability, obviously, but just for 1 more, you get the reserve ability. And we also see 2 Bravos Bastions shown up for the Kojo. It is
Where is it?
n
Hang
it
on just a
is
sec.
yeah, it is not in fact suspended for the Bravos folks out there because apparently we weren't using it correctly like the Axiom people, but, you know, is what it is.
All those traced invaders have been ferreted out, and we're back to Bravos only.
Bravos only Haven setup. Let's just keep it that way. We don't need to bring it back for Axiom. Although they will probably bring it back. I don't know what it'll be yet, but it'll be interesting to see what the change is going to set up. I like the idea as far as like a different topic here of the suspension and seeing how they're going to suspend things in particular, if they're going to go way off to something completely different, or if they're going to keep the same ideas of potentially just removing some type of effect, or adjusting it specifically for that faction or not.
Yeah, I think the idea of things like adjusting the resource cost is just like so basic. You immediately think of it. You're like, okay, yeah, that would tune down the power. But then all of a sudden you look at Sierra, who's already performing better in the meta, and realize that that would actually just increase her power. So these are things that the designers are, way ahead of us on. I love to speculate about that kind of thing as someone who likes to design games and think about the power level. But yeah, I mean, they've got a tough road ahead of them if they're trying to keep the spirit of the card while also balancing it down to something that's going to be permanently where they want it to be. So I'm very excited to see how they decide to move forward with some of these suspensions and getting those cards right on the second try.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I did not see Revert Waru on the player list today, so that's a disappointment. But either way, let's take a look at the game. Both players are adjacent on the Tumult. A little bit less to work with as far as the Kojo player, although they do have one additional card in hand and two of those Haven Bravos Bastions out. We do see a bunch in the reserve for the Tasia player and 6 mana to work with at this point.
Yeah, this Bravos Pathfinder with double boosts from the Haven have definitely made this Spindle Harvester's job a lot more difficult. And now this Haven Bouncer seems to sort of be slamming the door there. So, depending on how Tasia moves forward on the companion expedition, we might be headed to a final showdown, but it's going to be tricky.
Yeah, the Kojo is definitely leaving themselves open for some type of ability to use removal for 3 cost against someone against the Tasia. Maybe get rid of one of those anchored characters if they plan on going into a tiebreaker, but not quite sure if that will be the case. Either way, the Tasia taking their time trying to decide what they're going to use. We will see a young Sue Verdant Weaver come out since we have 2 plants on the board and it gets boosted up to a 5/5/5.
Yeah, that's pretty potent offense when it comes to the companion expedition. With our Kojo player only moving forward on Forest, they have a little bit of an opening based on the stat lineup, but that might still not be enough.
We do see the Fire Rabbit come out, get the fleeting, add some boosts out there. There it looks like the Kojo is going to try to compete potentially on the companion side while giving that Buddha a boost. I'm not sure what else they have in hand that would help them do that at this point. They would need at least 2 more stats or 3 stats rather in Forest to advance. So I'm
Mhm.
not quite sure what is left in the Bravo setup that would let you get that. Potentially a Trial by Frost card. I'm
Yeah,
not I'm not sure exactly on all the Trial by Frost cards yet. I know a lot
it
of them have like a forest focus.
It could be a Trial by Frost character. We could be in Bravos Tracer or Bus territory. But we could also be looking at a spot where, we have firm control of the hero expedition. Maybe we just decide to stick with the card advantage and move into the final day with a little bit more juice to work with here.
Yeah, we could
And it
be
looks like that's what Tasia is planning for. We are headed to sleep our own character.
yeah,
Oh,
we do
no.
get the intimidation removal.
We certainly do. So that looks like we're going to get a double progression from Kojo to seal it out. A valiant effort by Tasia to maintain resources and play all the way through. But yeah, Kojo had that one-off card that's just going to make it harder. So very well played by both players.
Yeah, interestingly enough, by not playing that Ogun there, it may have potentially put them in a spot where they could have still advanced even with the intimidation, but decided to play for the tiebreaker rather moving
Yeah,
forward. So
you know, I'm a terminal bet hedger, so I totally understand that kind of play line, and it's something that I would be more than happy to do in most situations. Sometimes you just get got. If you make all the right plays, it just comes up a little tough.
and with that game ending, we go into round 2 of the Swiss.
Awesome.
Officially done a little bit early, everyone. That's the benefit of not having 128 players like the EU folks on Monday, I guess. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we have available here on the setup. Speaking of EU folks, let's go ahead and take a look at table 6. I believe Teichi with the altered aces
Excellent.
is playing up against Yosito. Josito. from España. And let's pull that up there, switch it over for everyone to be able to view. Finally, on the correct
Mm,
setup as far as being able to see everything without me adjusting the screens. A oh, it's right. I'm not calling it Finn anymore, because Westwill says we're going to call it Crowbar. Crowbar decks, no longer Finn decks. This is a Crowbar deck versus a Tasia deck.
all right, I'm into it. Smashing pumpkins over here, and it seems like both players have wasted absolutely no time. Blazed right through setting our mana, and also headed into the first turn with that mana eruption into Crowbar is a little scary here, just because she's so good at accruing resources, and so pumping up her mana as well as you're going along is just asking for trouble in the late game. So as long as Tasia can present enough force up front, we should be fine. But yeah, if we start heading into the late game, things might get rocky for our Tasia player here.
Yeah, interesting to see the mana eruption coming out of the Muna player. Don't see it
Oh,
very
mana
often.
reaping. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Mana Eruption would also be quite scary to play on the first turn, but yeah,
Yeah.
Mana Reaping is what I meant.
We do see a unique croupier coming out from the Crowbar player. It when I go to the reserve from the exposition zone, if you control one or more landmarks, roll a die. Doesn't look like we see a landmark coming out quite yet, but we may be seeing it as it pertains to some type of setup here. Not quite sure what landmark you would be using for the Lyra player, but
Yeah,
we'll
I
take a look.
mean, as someone who's enjoyed a Lyra deck from time to time, even if you don't have the landmark in the deck, I'm looking at a 0/5/5 with a relevant discard from reserve effect. That might just be enough to seal the deal here, especially if we don't have uniques that are leaning into our strategy particularly hard. And with Fen and Crowbar, excuse me, as a value deck, that might be something that they're just more than happy with the stats as is.
Makes sense. Makes sense. As they take their time looking at what's going to go on here, we will get the acapella, blah blah blah, training being played on the Confernal Cone Man, another card we don't get to see very often. And sure enough, there we get to see a fairly common card, a rare Alavera getting anchored.
That is the 4-drop for me. But yeah, some Cone Man out of the original starter deck was never a card I was sad to see. Getting that cost reduction on the rare feels pretty good.
This does leave the aloe vera open to getting slept by Twinkle Twinkle and making the anchored ability fairly irrelevant, but we may also see something else come out of the Lyra hero.
Well,
Not a bad card to hit with Beauty Sleep there,
yeah,
considering the sabotage coming from reserve.
yeah. This isn't the turn that I necessarily love to see that, only because our opponent's not going to have priority on the next turn for, we can sneak out the Cone Man before we're worried about Tinkerbell snagging it. But, the longer we keep her or on the field and out of that reserve for her ability, the better.
We do see a 2-0 come from the Tasia player, so now we're even on the tumult, but there is a lot available as far as characters are concerned for the Crowbar player, and they will get a resupply from the good old hero ability, as well as a resupply for the Tasia player due to the aloe vera.
Yeah, I mean, after that turn one mana reaping, going into turn four back at parity feels nice, but we're starting to see that resource disparity I talked about a little bit here. Of Crowbar has one card in hand, but also the ability to play two of these cards from reserve and still come out with additional resources. So we might get a little bit of an outvaluing here that could cause some problems going forward, especially as we
Interesting.
see, yeah, the
Yeah.
cloth is quite good here.
Yeah, interesting on the decision to go ahead and try to anchor the aloe vera, knowing that the cloth cocoon is there. You had to think maybe just potentially baiting the card out to get it used for this next play here, but you had to have thought that that was coming. We do see a unique Esmeralda if you want to say what it does.
Yeah, for sure. So we're seeing from anywhere if you control one or more landmarks, resupply. And then from reserve, if you control two or more boosted characters, one character with hand cost three or less other than me gains anchored. A good chance that we have a Spindle Munabastion somewhere in this deck, so that resupply will come in handy. But even if not, with how many anchored cards we've seen out of Tasia so far, there's a very good chance that we get to re-anchor something off of that Esmeralda.
And we do see the support ability coming out of that unique croupier in order to give target player and all the characters they control fleeting. So we will not see that unique be played as far as the Esmeralda from reserve. And the Tasia is left with just the beauty sleep in the reserve and potentially two cards in hand once they decide to mana or not.
Yeah, I got to be honest. When I read that croupier for the first time, I thought that discard from reserve ability was just giving target character fleeting. With each character fleeting, I definitely feel better about including that card in my deck as my crowbar player.
We do see a gear show up as far as Trial by Frost
This might be
cards.
my favorite card in the set. I
The
lose fleeting, one cost. It doesn't get better than that.
rare winter outfits, and it doesn't hurt when it gets resupplied at this point because it doesn't matter from hand or reserve, it just loses the fleeting.
That's absolutely right.
And it's fun art.
Yeah, art's great.
Allowing
But
that aloe vera to be a 4/4/4 across the board, and we see the Hydra come out for the Tasia player. Interesting considering we didn't see very much as far as a ramp is concerned from them thus far, but we do see the rare Hydra.
oh, and might be seeing it go away here, unfortunately. Yep. So, new card, Break the Ice. I cost two less if you have three or more base stats at zero among characters we control. But even if not, we've got a four cost here that's going to send target characters to reserve and exhaust it.
Not that it matters too much here because they probably weren't going to play that Hydra from reserve after just playing it. But now they definitely aren't because a Tinkerbell comes out and it gets sabotaged.
Yeah,
Easy 2-0 for the Crowbar player, now only one away on the Tumult from taking the W.
absolutely. A scary thing to think about as the Tasia player, too, is once we bring that Hydrocana out, it is still eternal, but it does have fleeting. And we've already seen a card from our Crowbar player with the Cloth Cocoon that can get rid of that fleeting character. So it was definitely going to be a dicey proposal going into this turn and not likely to be played again. Right now, we're just looking for Tasia to apply enough pressure and hopefully brave their way through that winter outfits, which is going to be providing these spike stat characters with a lot more juice than you'd usually see.
We do see a Haven Seringer be resupplied in the out of faction, typically in Bravos, come
I
up
believe this
for.
is the rare version too, right?
Yeah, it's the out of faction, so it has to be at this point, right? So yeah, it is. It has the typical effect, and then from reserve, it gains a boost. So realistically, it becomes a four stat in green, and with winter outfits, it's a 4/4/4 character, all for two costs, which is not half bad.
No, pretty brutal.
We do see a
Another,
unique come out for the Tasia player.
yeah, I'd be happy to take that one.
Yep.
Ortis Liaison here says when another character joins your expedition, you may discard a card from your reserve. If you do, up to two target characters each gain a boost. And then from anywhere, you can discard a card from your reserve, which it looks like we might be doing here, to give the Ortis Liaison itself two boosts. Then we've got a discard from reserve for the next card you play this afternoon to cost one less.
You'll see that Seringer come out, and it's not going to quite matter for the Tasia player and another Cloth Cocoon to hit that aloe vera, so it definitely won't matter on that end. And we're looking at an easy 2-0 for the Lyra hero and taking the victory in this round two of Swiss.
Yep. Crowbar just absolutely took over with card advantage, and we see this game end with literally only one card on Tasia's side. So definitely a beating there. But well played by both players for sure.
Cool. All right, let's switch over here as we go in a little bit further of round two of the Swiss.
I'm seeing a battle of the Titans here with Simon versus the Keelan guy at table 7. We want to
Well, let's
jump in there.
take a look at what we got here. Table 7, 50% progress. Oh boy, plenty of time. Simon versus the Keelan guy. Switching over for everyone to take a look. It's Afanis versus Kojo, both players using their preferred hero at this point. And it looks like Simon has the early lead on the tumult at this point and needs only three more advances. And both of them are using uniques.
Yeah, a very robust game state for sure. We've got double uniques. Looks like Simon's got the Sabotage, Tooth Fairy, two from hand, two from reserve, 202 stats, and then can have a character lose fleeting when discarded from reserve. And then Keelan guy with his signature spindles over here. This one in particular is looking to have one or more boost when it leaves the expedition zone. And from hand, it gains anchored and resupplies. So a lot of value packed into this little mouse.
Interestingly enough, besides the Haven Bravos Bastion coming out from the Kojo, we also see a Nilum Withered Tree from the
Yeah,
Aphanis. It is a fun permanent as far as producing some mana moths, and it's the common, so it's 4 cost, not quite as cheap as a rare, but still does a lot of work if you're exhausting things.
yeah. When it comes to this new set, you don't have to do a whole lot to make a faunus good. But if you're looking to try out some new cards, this tree, along with the Rhyme Frost that we see played from Keelan Guy right now, are definitely a way to go. You're going to get additional advantage out of delaying what your opponent is doing while also gaining boost on your characters and a moth for your trouble.
Yep, good use of the Rhyme Frost, as you mentioned. Now we will have 2 Bravos Pathfinders in the reserve. One of them is exhausted, only 1 mana left for Simon on the Kojo, so nothing left to play here, and they both go 1 for 1. Now 2 advances away for Simon on the Kojo, 3 for the Keelan guy with the Aphanis.
Yeah, no, Afanis is definitely going to be happy to score a double progression here with their Spindle Harvester if they can manage it, putting them into a position where Small Step Giant Leap will make the final turn a little less of a sweat.
We do still have the unique Tooth Fairy for Simon on the Kojo that will allow an immediate sabotage if he decides to do so, potentially trying to hit that Rhyme Frost to prevent a easy exhaust to trigger the Withered Tree, or maybe just hit the magical training so they can't draw any additional cards. We'll see right
Yeah,
now.
Tooth Fairy on the companion side here is going to gain that boost from Haven, shut out the mouse on our forest only expedition, and make it look like a double progression is certainly possible here for Kojo and Buddha ending the game on.
And I'm getting disconnection stuff from OBS Studio. Hopefully everything's fine.
So
And we're fine. Yeah. All right. Hopefully everyone's still able to see. I'm going to check YouTube real quick. Looks like we're still on. We're fine. We do see draw coming out, like you mentioned, with the magical training in order to boost up that spindle harvester.
yeah, I snuck a peek into Kojo's Discard as well to see if I could find any ramp that might explain the mana disparity here. But I think Afanis has just been playing nice and low to the ground and preferring to keep some cards in hand to press that advantage and get back to a spot where Small Step Giant Leap is a possibility for ending the game.
We do see an intimidation come out here.
Ooh.
Gonna hit that spindle harvester, removing the large amount of stats, and it won't be able to get those back, even if he plays it again from hand.
Yeah, that is a tough hit on the Afanis side. We're now very much losing the expedition on companion side, and yeah, a little bit of a sweat.
Off you go. Will hit one of the characters on the hero side. A Chiron comes out, getting the additional boost, but since they are not in forest, it won't quite matter. And we're probably looking at another 1 for 1 here.
Yeah, good to see. I'm seeing some notes in the chat from Simon and the Keelan guy. Keelan guy shares my sentiment that that was not a nice thing to do to a mouse.
We do know that it is in hand now at this point, as far as a Faunus is concerned, unless it gets maned here, who knows? When we see it get maned here, it may have outlived its usefulness, although it does resupply from hand, correct?
That's right. It does resupply and also gain anchored. So if we do manage to score a double progression here, even if Kojo gets in for one, we can head into the final turn with hopefully a buffed up mouse. If I'm the Keelan guy here, I'm really hoping to have drawn some sleeps or some off you goes or magical trainings to help bolster the mouse as I'm headed into the last couple turns. Mola here is going to exhaust a card in reserve, likely getting rid of the stat stick Chiron if we're planning to push, or getting rid of, as we see here, the Axiom Salvager to slow down some resources and also give us our Moth, which will help bolster our position on the tumble.
Yeah, nice little setup there to be able to use the support ability of the character that is typically 2 costs from reserve in order to get a 2/2/2 mana moth on the board, as well as hitting the Axiom Salvager, knowing that they'll have that many fewer resources in order to play for this potential final day.
Yeah, Pomola did not excite me as we were heading out of preview season into the first pre-releases, but watching it sing and hum alongside this withered tree and the rhyme frosts, you start to see the bigger picture here, and this is definitely a deck that can put in some work.
We do see that unique Spindle Harvester come out. We will see a resupply, and that is not a bad resupply to hit, especially if we have another spell in hand for the Keelan guy on the Aphanis.
Yeah, and off you go out of hand right now might just slam the door on this whole game, which would be pretty impressive from what we were looking at last turn. We were definitely a little bit more nervous, but yeah, showing some great strength here.
And with the stacking of the Chirons for Simon on the Kojo on the companion side, we have to assume that he's just trying to go one for one here and potentially try to win the game, but still is probably going to need at least one other card to guarantee it with one card in hand left for Aphanis.
Simon notes in chat, what's the worst that could happen here? And I think the worst that can happen here is an off you go from hand. So we will see if, it's like our earlier game with the last card in hand Kojo Intimidation. Maybe we're going to see a last card in hand Aphanos removal to double progress and seal the deal.
Could also just look at a helping hand to get up high enough to block as well.
That's yeah, absolutely.
But we do see a unique Order Spy come out from
And this
Simon.
Order Spy is pretty impressive here. It's going to allow us from hand to discard a mana orb to gain 2 boosts. So suddenly Simon comes from possibly leaving both sides to almost certainly winning on one, and that should be enough to close the game out.
We'll see if anything is left for the Keelan guy in hand.
Keelan guy taking a second and thinking it over, just like Simon.
Makes you think that there is potentially something that is capable of happening here to not lose immediately, unless
Yeah,
math is taking a little bit extra of time. I don't know how it works for the Swedish folk, but I'm pretty sure math works the same across the world. Hopefully, he's just taking his time to figure it out.
yeah, absolutely. I think if we're looking at one of these pieces of removal that can handle the Order Spy, that's enough to tie us. Okay, so we see a Helping Hand coming out. Helping Hand, with the current board state, is offering us 3 additional boosts, one from Helping Hand, one from the Mage Dancer, and then one from the Athanas ability. And as we look at the board here, it doesn't look like that was enough, question mark?
Nope. It'll be one boost short at this point
There we
and
go.
allow Simon to take it. And as Cole mentioned in the chat, he was told that he had to let Simon win in order to stay on the stream team.
It's a rare
Uh,
and beautiful privilege, so
yeah,
I will have to concede my games to Simon as well, it seems.
yeah. Maybe I should start using that too and just play as I'm casting and say, if you don't let me win, I'll never let you be on stream. Either way, good games. That was a fun one coming down
Yeah,
to the wire there, getting to see a little bit of changes in the Afanis setup, utilizing the exhaust in order to produce produce some mana moth. I'm having some
Yeah,
trouble pronouncing there, so let's switch back here, see where we're at for round two.
I also think it's interesting to note. I mean, we've only looked at a couple of games so far, but every game has had a Kojo and Buddha in it. So maybe seeing a lot of representation with that hero here as well, just as we saw in Italy.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. What else do we have here? Not that many games left. We have one game left. It looks
Yep.
like
Table
table.
19.
Yeah, table 19. Let's see if we can zoom in here real quick to catch the end of it. Before we get to round three of the Swiss, we are in a tiebreaker. Good times for everyone to jump in. We've been talking about the tiebreakers. Finally, get to see one. Goalring versus Kojo and Buddha. Again, the Kojo is showing up, and interestingly enough, for the Kojo, we do have the Eat Me Energy Bar out, which will be nice in the tiebreaker.
Now, does this actually interact the way that our Kojo player wants it to, where Gigantic for each expedition is actually going to double stats in the final day?
Technically, if it is gigantic, it should still double stat like it normally does in tiebreaker, but we do see a lot of tokens come out here that will get that goal ring boost, and it may not even matter depending on what's set up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gonna go ahead and throw out that Tanuki from reserve.
All right, so that tells us we're still cooking. Eat Me Energy Bar does notably only work if there's only one character in its expedition. So it sounds like Kojo has more to do this turn. We see the very rare Robin Hood in the current game, but when you're looking at it and producing as many tokens as we just did, it makes a lot of sense why he's still here. For those watching, this Robin Hood is cards your opponents play can't cost less than two, the typical Robin Hood ability. And then from hand, if you control a token, create two recruits in each expedition. Absolutely backbreaking stat stick here, especially in a goal rank deck.
Yeah, and 223 stats themselves, and we'll see a unique occlute coming out, getting a benefit of the gigantic, it seems, but not quite enough stats with all the tokens on board for the girl ring. The occlute does have an ability that I did not get to see before the game ended. Too bad. Hopefully, everyone else got to get that quick screenshot in. But we're on to round three of the Swiss.
I want a screenshot of triple 20 plus stats in the final day. That was a pretty impressive number that you don't see much.
Fun to see the goal ring come out. I'll be interested to see how that does for the rest of the setup here. We are in the Swiss round three of the Altered Weekly Online League, Season 2, Wednesday Weekly number 2. I am Blue. We have a new co commentator here. Why don't you introduce yourself once again for the people?
Absolutely. My name is Jalex at the Tabletop Tinker on all the things, and I am excited to be casting some Altered here with you guys today.
Hopefully we'll be getting a lot of new folks on the AWOL stream moving forward. If you are interested, be sure to reach out to either myself, Simon, or anyone else that looks like they're in charge. Just don't listen to them if they ask for money, unless it's me. I'll take the money. Either way, round three, let's take a look at the tables of what we got going here. We
Could
already
I?
saw Simon play. We saw Ryan play. You got another table you want to look at?
Yeah, I'm kind of enticed by this table 7 here. Did we watch Claudius play already?
We didn't. We watched his teammate Tatu play, so we can
That's
watch Radius play.
right. I recognize double A's, and I haven't touched my Game Boy today, so it had to be that.
Yeah,
Let's head
that's
in.
fair. Um, Side note, which Game Boy do you actually utilize? Out of curiosity.
I have a Game Boy Color lime green that came with the Pokemon Crystal, which I still have as well, but 7-year-old kid brain decided to take the sticker off the cartridge, so it's a little less exciting these days.
That's
But
fair.
still a cool thing to have in the back pocket.
I have my Game Boy Color, my Game Boy Advance, but not a DS.
Yeah, my 3D or my 2DS died about a year ago, and I have a local retro video game store that uh, has those all the time. But every time I go in there, it seems like they just sold their last one. So still waiting for the magical day where I can reunite with some of my old games.
Always just can go for the emulator too if you wanted to, but I guess it just doesn't have quite the same magic to it.
Yeah.
It's weird that the Game Boy Colors and the Game Boy Advances can still work, but our DSs are breaking. Either way, we're into the game. We have a Sigismar versus a Gold Ring, Symbiosis piloting rather the Gold Ring.
Little battle of the blues here, commentated by the blue here.
Exactly. A lot of blue happening here. We do get a token showing up, doing a little defender action, preventing an advance on both sides at this point, just delaying the game as much as possible, especially with the mobile armory. That's a great card. I heard that whoever made the announcement video for that is a great YouTuber and you should subscribe to them. Eventually it'll show up down here. I am that YouTuber. Either way, moving forward here, we do get an advance from Goldring. And out of curiosity, why did they get the advance there?
The mobile armory
Oh,
says
that's
defend
right. That's right.
characters.
I forgot
Yeah.
about that. I forgot my own card. Damn it!
I think they actually errated it to make it more powerful after your video came out.
That's fair.
They were just
Yeah,
so impressed. So
yeah.
it makes sense that you'd forget, but
The
that's okay.
video is so impressive that they had to change the card. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Either We have Foundry Mechanic coming out for the Sigismar, a lot of low-cost cards, and sure enough, we have an Ortis Carrier for a Gold Ring. I have to imagine that this is probably one of the best original setups that you can have as a Gold Ring player to get an advance, prevent your opponent from advancing, at least in that first round, as you etch your way up to that 8 mana.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just sort of this dread of inevitability as you're looking at the Gold Ring and Toxin slowly prevent each play, just knowing that as you head in that late game, they're going to be starting to put out 8, 10, and 12 stats with ease. And funny enough, looks like Toxin here is our culprit from the Rallying Call art, which just occurred to me. Rallying Call, of course, quite good as a new tool for some of the Erratus Tawaru and possibly other cards that you might be playing in your Ortis decks.
Yeah, it never occurred to me that Toxin was blowing on a horn there, doing a little bit of a Ricola, setting up for everyone, but it is in fact that, as you can see, it is very similar, a little bit different as far as the color of the art, but, is what is happening.
It is tough to say Goal Ring with a sore throat, so Toxin, putting in the work here for the Ricola Horn.
Makes sense. Gotta get a little bit of a benefit for the sore throat. Golrang being a prominent figure for Trial by Frost, at least in the art setup, riding on top of Toxin. I was always curious as far as, like, the scale of Toxin, as far like, how big is it actually? Because in this art, doesn't look that big, but in the other art, Goldring is riding on top of Toxin, so I'm not quite sure what the actual scale is there, but either way.
I think we are somewhere below Neon Genesis Evangelion and somewhere above Cubics. I had to guess.
Someone get the scale bar out for that, so that way we can compare that for everyone. But a great comparison there by my co-caster. I'm glad everyone was able to understand that if you didn't look it up.
I
Either
think
way,
I think anybody who didn't understand the Cubics reference should probably they're going to have a hard time. Anybody who did understand it, go pay your taxes and go to sleep. It's late.
taxes indeed. We are coming up on April, so if anyone is in the US and needs to pay their taxes, a few months left. Be sure to pay attention. Either way, two tokens coming out here for the gold ring. We're on 5 mana, so they do have defender, except for the one that has on the hero side, because of what card is it? The mobile armory. That's right.
Oh yeah. And another Ortis carrier is going to mean that, a lot of free stats on our companion side moving forward. This Baba Yaga might be the last time we see an advance for Sigismar on that side without putting a lot of effort into it. And that just opens up time for Gulrang to continue to chug towards that 8 mana limit and then start to close the door. So far, we only see Sigismar with a single extra progression. Looks like we're headed into a couple more here. But yeah, the later the game goes and the closer you still are to your opponent's character on the tumult, it's scarier as we go.
Still a good balance from the Sigismar player.
Definitely.
Getting 2 advances the previous 2 days here, putting a little bit of pressure on the goal ring player, even with getting those Ortis carriers out, you're gonna lose a little bit of tempo, and the Sigismar, I believe, has, at this point, been able to get out 2 Baba Yagas, so has a nice full hand to work with,
Yeah, the card advantage go Burr right now.
and gets a token of their own over on the hero side, and we will see a Chrysalis come out in the rare version for the Gold Ring.
I do like Chrysalis. That was a very fun card in draft.
Also a fun art. I like just how it's set up in
Hmm.
general, as far and the progression of the common, rare to unique in general. But we speaking of uniques,
Here we
speak
go.
of it and you shall appear, and we have Ordis Trooper 11011, and it's a token generator. Gotta love it.
Yep. One cost token generators, doubling as an after you, and of course, blowing up stats very quickly. Um, a very powerful card for sure.
So we'll see what the Sigismar can do with it here. Good amount of stats left on the board on the companion side for the Gold Ring, but with the unique out, they will be able to stack up that hero side a little bit if they choose to.
Yeah, kind of interesting to see. Goldring over here has 4 resources left and just decided, pass. If you want to throw your entire hand at this board state, I would be more than happy to let that slide. Or possibly the card in hand is just too expensive, and that gives Sigismar something else to be a little concerned about going into the next turn.
And Sigismar decides to say thank you. I'll take another 2-0. That's 3 2 advances in a row. Goldring has gotten an advance here or there in the meantime. And a fun little interaction with Goldring is, since it is a token, Manamoth does get a boost as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a spot where, as the Goring player, now I'm getting a little nervous. This turn I'm going to 7 mana here, and even still, I'm going to be playing defense into an opponent who still has quite a lot going on for them. So we are now the hard press on defense here.
Yeah, one of the bad things with Goldring is that you almost feel like you can't really afford not to mana until you hit 8. And when you're running low on resources, as the folks in the chat mentioned, it does not feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't kept up with the Goring list very much since Trial by Frost. I know a lot of the tools that have come in, being able to remove that defender drawback when playing from behind is a nice way to make sure you're still progressing in the game prior to that 8 mana turn. But even still, yeah, some additional card draw or something might be really nice here. And with the suspension of Ozma, that makes things a little bit more difficult. That was just a nice glue piece for all of our blue decks that is currently missing in action.
Yeah, the only other card that I had been thinking about that I haven't really gotten to test out yet for Goldring is, I don't remember what the name. It's the one with the geyser that's a removal, and then when you play it, you put it tapped into your mana as a form of ramp kind of thing to hit that 8 mana a little bit sooner. But
Oh, is it?
it is 4 cost, so
Mhm.
a little heavy.
I Yeah, I hadn't paid attention to that card being, the faction shifted, but that one being in blue is pretty impressive. I had
We
a
do see,
full-on double take on this Atlas, giving tokens we control gigantic, so, for a moment there, we were absolutely bumping with, double-digit stats on our hero side, but, Tiny Jail has made that a little worse.
yeah, Tiny Jail hits it hard. Poor Atlas doesn't have any stats over 3, so it gets hit. We'll use the
Yep.
quick effect to produce a recruit, meaning there's nothing in hand, obviously, for 0 cost. Let's see if there are any stats that the Sigismar has left to play in order to get the single advance that they need in order to take this game before we run into the 8 mana setup that every Gold Ring player loves to see.
Yeah, it looks like Sigmar's passing, so we are not gonna see that advance, and,
We'll take the
we
draw.
also get that, yeah, the card draw off of, the excuse me here, Ortis Attorney.
Yep.
Quite nice. But yeah, as noted, Goreng is officially turned on this turn. So those red X's are going to disappear and we're going to look a whole lot scarier. But
Yeah,
will it be
someone
enough to overcome the 6 card hand and removal in the reserve?
yeah, someone clip that really quick so we can talk about Bull Ring being turned on. Um, we do have 2 cards in hand for the Gull Ring, as you mentioned, but a bunch of cards in hand for the Sigismar. We'll have a bunch of tokens for the Gull Ring, 2 cards to play. They are playing first, so they won't be able to counter or play behind as far as what the Sigismar is going to play, and we'll likely to see Sigismar be able to play for free here, including using that tiny jail to potentially remove some cards. So we'll take a look.
Yeah, Tiny Jail definitely has the number of this Mana Moth right now, as well as taking up this Ortis Gatekeeper potentially. But I think the better move here would definitely be the Moth, just getting rid of the character with the highest stat in green on the hero side. But we have 5 other cards to play with here, so that might not even come up.
Yeah, going for the slow play. Gonna see the last card that the Gull Ring has to play. Yeah, they may have a open the gates, in fact, but we will see a teamwork training to remove, and it was a good idea from the Sigismar to slow play and be able to have any bigger statted characters available to play at this point. 7 mana to catch up on either side. We will see the Tiny Jail being played on the Mana Moth, as you mentioned, and we'll see what else is in hand.
Yep. Unfortunately for our Toxin player, any character with a blue stat in the Hero Expedition will seal the deal, and Sandman is certainly up to the job.
Gonna go ahead and get the sleep out, get the single advance. We do hit 8 mana, but the gold ring is just a little bit too far behind with too few resources in order to take this game.
Yep, it was
GG's
a good,
nonetheless. It was a good take in general. Fun to see.
yeah. And if not for that Tiny Jail timely coming down for our list, that card definitely had the potential to do some damage on back-to-back turns. It would have been very fun to see that card at full power, just absolutely abusing its abilities.
Continuing on with the round 3 of the Swiss. That is what we are currently in for all you lovely folks in the stream. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. So does everyone else on the AWOL stream team. Be sure to reach out if you would like to join. We're always open to some new folks. Either way, let's take a look at what we have available. We do have Rune Folk on a 43% progression. I assume that means they're probably using some type of stall. Let's see if that is the case. Table 10.
Table 10. You see Josito once more.
It is, in fact, a good old fashioned Akesha.
Yep. And as we saw from earlier in the stream, this Esmeralda that cares about landmarks to resupply and also gives anchored to your characters. We do, in fact, have this spindle hiding in the deck and has the at noon giving a boost. The makeup of this deck earlier showed that we were more than happy to have discard from reserve cards that anchored our 3-cost characters. So this Spindle Muna Bastion rare is putting in extra work of boosting all of our characters over time.
Get that double usage out of the small step giant leap. Good old Akesha, a friendly witch of some sort. I mean, do you think there is such a thing as like good witches in general, or all witches bad?
I want to say there's got to be some good witches out there, but this one has activated the fires, kicked up her feet on the desk, and fully taken control of the game. More than happy to discard 3 cards at end of turn because she's still got 10 in hand. You just got to respect the absolute overkill of the card advantage and power we're seeing from Akesha here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like movies and media like Wicked are dangerous because, I mean, if you take a look at witches in general in real life, because witches do exist in real life. For example, like the Salem witch trials, like if they hadn't done those trials in Salem, Massachusetts, it would have, I mean, Massachusetts itself would have been in flames, right?
That's
Thankfully,
true.
thankfully they did get rid of those witches, and we are where we are now.
And we came out all the better with the solemn ski.
Exactly. Gotta love a good fashioned solemn in general. I mean, Massachusetts at that time was overrun with witches. They were bad. They were bad in general. Maybe Akesh is better, but at this moment, I just don't trust witches. But I do trust a good old fashioned Hydra and two uniques in the reserve for the
Absolutely.
Tasia player.
Asia seems to, have everything humming at full power, and yet I'm looking at an Akesha deck with no cards in discard because we've already made our way entirely through the deck and only 10 cards left in deck. So a, a pretty strong showing, to say the least. If we have found one of what I can only assume are three small step giant leaps still in the deck, we might just be seeing the triple Monty here going directly into a game win.
We also
You'll
may
note,
see, yeah, we also may see one of like just advancing all the way across the tumult while the companion side just stays where they are. Just letting the dog chill on the one side as the hero advances all the way.
yeah, I don't care if that squid has 8 legs. They're small. You don't want her to move if she doesn't have to.
Exactly. Witches can fly.
Yeah, I gotta say, with triple progression on some small step giant leaps in a single turn, and yet, I gotta respect the cool factor of Santa's sleigh. I like seeing that move across the tumult much faster, even if it moves a little less.
Probably looking at some stats getting added here. They won't be able to advance on the companion side either way at this point. So they do
Yeah,
get that final advance there, and we go all the way across the tumult in order to meet up with the buddy and take the win.
Isatok overcoming a Hydra there with the help of that unique, which didn't even have time to read. That was a very strong showing from Akesha, and I didn't see a whole lot of new cards in the deck, but that package is just so powerful right now. Once you get going, if your opponent doesn't have removal at the exact right time, you could be in for a hurting.
Indeed. We only have a few games left here. We can jump in with the one that seems to have the most time, which is Table 2. We get to see AQZ Ryan show up once again, and we'll see a them play another Afanis. I believe they played Afanis originally when we were watching. Maybe I'm wrong, but either way, let's switch over and take a look.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of cards available left for Gato on the Afanis. Well, we only see an Occlute for Ryan on the Kojo and Buddha.
Yeah, a quick look through the discard of our Afanis player is actually only showing a singular Spycraft as removal interaction. So surprised to see Kojo so bullied on resources here, but it definitely does happen. We do see those two removal spells in Afanis player's reserve right now. So it's possible it was just this turn that we just cleared out this three little pigs, maybe the Bravos Trailblazer. A lot of action in the last couple turns has led to Kojo kind of running on fumes. But as we're heading into Kojo's turn, next turn we get the free Buddha token, and this clue is going to put in some additional work. So we might see some bounce back here very quickly.
Yeah, Keelan you just need to start playing Arjun. You gotta abandon the Afanis. It's time for Arjun play and just going all out there. Then you'll understand better. I promise. Bring on the Arjun setup. But either way, deciding not to mana here from the Kojo player. Gonna keep on both of those cards they just drew and potentially play the Clue as well.
Yeah, a clue coming in to either turn off this beauty sleep for a single turn or just tell Gato you don't got it. I don't think you have enough characters in hand, so this category and Mage Dancer is gone, and suddenly you're running on all spells. We could see this go in multiple directions. A little unfortunate here that Kojo is not able to play that boosted stat on the companion expedition for water. Looks like we were wanting to challenge both expeditions here. A perfectly respectable 5 stats in forest, and yeah, looks like we're going to turn off that sleep. And oh, excuse me here. It looks like we get double triggers on the Occlute due to the effect of Bravos Bastion. So a full shutout on the reserve here. Our Faunus player is just playing with the 4 cards in hand, and they're probably going to lose some card advantage heading out of this turn.
Yeah, I was curious without thinking about that double exhaust what they would target
Yeah.
specifically because that beauty sleep could probably just hit pretty hard regardless,
Hmm.
but didn't have to worry about it. But we do see another Haven Bravos Bastion come out with a Haven Warrior being resupplied. Will allow a boost if there is a 1 cost 1 left for the Kojo player, but they just may not have it, and we could potentially be looking at an Afanis small step play with a unique Alice coming out.
Yeah, Alice here pretty good, discarding a card from reserve, in this case the tap down Beauty Sleep, and gaining target character 3 boosts. Now this is a from anywhere ability, so next turn we might see this come back out again. And also the Alice signature effect of after you discard from reserve. So a 4 cost 5/6/6 stat stick coming from the Afanis deck. Definitely a nice piece to have.
Already through half their deck as far as the Faunus is concerned, so we are more than likely having a chance to see a small step giant leap being played, but we may not. Who knows? And we are. It's like I have ESPN or something. Anyway, we see the win there. Close game nonetheless. So unfortunate for AQZ Ryan getting hit there, but fun Kojo play either way as we potentially go into round 4 of the Swiss. I'm not quite sure if we're there yet. Let's take a
Yeah, I
look.
didn't browse all the way down, but I think that might have been our last game, which would put us at what, 2 matches, 2 rounds, all matches completed ahead of time? Question
Nope.
mark.
We have one more left, it looks like. Let's take a look at what it is.
Yeah, table 20 at 86, which might mean that we're in the final day here.
We do see an Orak being played here against Atasia, so fun to get to see that real quick.
Love me some Aurak. Several new cards from the set, really abusing how Lyra tends to spike stat their characters at the expense of one particular one. No art degree jokes there, but the winter outfit is going to absolutely help with pumping up all of those characters. Oof. And slamming the door with this Lyra Navigator with 4 in water, totally covering up our stats from our Tasia player.
Yeah, only needs one advance here in order to take the game, so good to just stack up here. Yes, it was a Mean Girls reference. I'm glad Simon got that. If someone could tell me on Mean Girls what God created on the 3rd day, I will give them this season 1 OP pack. Right in the chat. Not actual Bible references, Mean Girls reference. What did God create on the 3rd day? Either way. Going back into the game, I'll give you guys a minute or 2 max so that way you don't Google it. Either way, we do see the double advance from the Tasia player. That's cool to see. So it didn't quite matter, but we will see an Aurak ability get hit off here with 7 counters. That is correct, Simon. The Remington Bolt action rifle. So man could fight the dinosaurs. And I'm going to leave out the next part.
I'm still waiting for there to be a non-navigator boat in RX so that we can flip over our top deck and it could be anything, even a boat. But it has to be a
Oh,
really big boat, like a
oh
guy bought.
boy, Paper Herald for free. I thought it was just a regular Paper Herald, but it is a unique Paper Herald at the very least.
Take what
Not
we can
that it
get.
matters.
This Paper Herald, by the way, is from reserve. Discard a card from reserve. If you do, I gain 2 boosts and can discard from reserve effect to create an Ordis token. Unfortunately, even coming from reserve at this point, going to be a tall order to get over some of these absolutely juiced shrooms on the hero expedition. And a nurture is not making that job any easier.
Yeah, big comeback here for the Tasia player potentially. Thought we were actually going to see an Aurak W, but no such luck. It's not over yet though. There still is 7 mana left. I could be wrong. I'm speaking into the mic right here.
We
Ah,
have we have you in 4K, so
yeah.
that's my secret with my camera. I never get caught in 4K.
Winner Fits is in fact huge, but we will see if there is enough left in hand for the Orac for it to matter. They will need to win at least one side, which is looks like what they're trying to do. A lot of nurturing happening from the Tejas hero. Makes sense. It seems like a very nurturing individual in general. I haven't met Tasia personally. Maybe Cole can tell me what it's like, but it seems like a nice warm hug.
I know Arak is the star of the show here, but they could scooch over a little bit. It's getting a little cramped.
A lot of snowmen coming out for Orac, getting those winter outfits boost. Yeah, it is a miracle grow with all that nurturing. Can still play it one more time. And a unique lyric cloth dancer. Why don't you tell me what it does?
We've got an at dusk up to one target character gains fleeting. Oh my gosh, there's so many counters. And then from anywhere up to one target character gains fleeting. So not going to do a whole lot on this board since everything's already fleeting. But we're heading into the final day and we're able to remove this aloe vera and the 8/8 sneezer shroom. We might feel a little bit better. Unfortunately, I think that this. Oh wait, we're actually out of resources, so this nurture is not going to seal the deal.
Nope. We will see a one for one. We will see a tiebreaker,
All
but we
right.
will see a bunch of anchored characters for the Tasia. Let's see how much it matters. It looks like some folks in chat are practicing their British accents. Hello, governor. Um, Spotted T. It's okay. All the EU folks are asleep. They don't know if honestly, is there that many UK altered players? I feel like I haven't seen that as much as far as like mainland Europe. Wait, never mind. I forgot about Brexit. UK is not part of EU anymore.
Yeah, I think they're trying to smuggle altered packs through the tunnel, but it's not happening very often. Maybe one day.
Interestingly enough, we do see the Trial by Frost tiebreaker arena, which I believe it was not set up when they first released it, and it was just the old one. So excited to see
Oh,
that.
okay.
See that one in there. It even has like a little water altered logo. I wonder if that's actually in the lore. Is it in the lore, folks? I want to know. I didn't read that part.
I'm not sure, but I feel like if you played a flute in the middle of that, you would summon Lugia.
Yeah, we may have some trademark issues with that, but it could be a possibility. Mr.
Lugia is
Awesome
no.
Possum is the UK guy. Okay, good to know.
Perfect. All right. So, you know, we'll take the resources we can get here. Tanuki sabotaging this nurture. Oh, excuse me. No, this was off the Aurak, so we do not get the from hand effect. We're just coming in here with a stat stick on our forest and mountain.
Truly a womp womp to not get the sabotage, but you take what you can.
Yeah.
Interesting that they decided to get rid of the winter outfits and getting the benefit of those additional stats, especially in a tiebreaker. But maybe they didn't think they would run into the characters they may need. And time limit gets reached. Let's see who took the win.
So sarcasm made it there in first, potentially.
Yep.
Yeah, sarcasm wins. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate to lose that winter outfits there. It's possible that they, just based on the cards they'd seen that game, were more likely to draw winter outfits than another character like that. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems I've found with winter outfits playing it so far. You get into the spot where it's like, do I keep this card because it helps spike some of my characters, or do I just want to rely on the raw value of my characters there? Ultimately, at the end of that previous turn, they I think had 5 cards head to reserve, so tough cuts in those situations for sure.
Yeah, and without Cole on the cast, we weren't paying attention to the time quite as much. He loves to remind everyone about the time, but we can take a look about the time in general. Sarcasm with 3 minutes left. Coco, not so much. So that's why we saw Sarcasm take the win on the Orac, I believe, was Sarcasm, if I'm correct. I believe I am. Either way, moving on to round four. Good games thus far. Any thoughts?
I mean, so far, Kojo and Buddha coming in strong. We've seen a couple wins there. and in general, some great gameplay. I've been surprised to not see as many Trial by Frost cards as I thought I might. But we're still in the very early days of brewing in this meta, so folks are still acquiring their cards. One of the benefits of the Kickstarter boxes was that players had cards in hand early and often, and the folks who were really into it early had those cards to give to folks much earlier. So as we're seeing people get into their cases a little bit more, acquire some of those singles, and as we head into the open beta part two, when folks can freely trade and acquire cards again, we might see additional brewing that makes some of these heroes appear more robust.
Definitely. And so in round four, currently, we have six undefeated folks. So we have three undefeated matches. Let's go ahead and take a look at table one. For everyone watching, we appreciate it. We are in round four of the Swiss of the Altered Weekly Online League, AWOL Season 2, Wednesday Weekly, number two. And table one is Demogenes and AQZ Freeloader, another AQZ player, Helon guy, whipping all of his teammates into shape. Let's switch over. A Teja versus another Kojo.
I believe this is our third Teja Kojo matchup of the night, if I'm recalling correctly. And off to a similar start. We got Buddha coming out strong in the first turn, and we're seeing a double progression here potentially from Kojo, while Teja also brings it in with one. No, okay. She's not going to quite get there this turn. That's okay, though. We'll have this very strong Spindle Harvester heading into next turn. I've been very impressed with so far. You've got the rare version here, which has discard from reserve to give target character cost 3 or less anchored. So potentially keeping the dream alive with the Spindle Harvesters, especially since this is the rare that has at noon resupply if I have 2 or more boosts. Potentially just creating this consistent value engine over the course of the game. Even if they're not advancing regularly on the companion side due to Buddha, they might just get a lot of value out of this that allows them to outgrind Kojo ultimately.
Yeah, so was a fun one in sealed setup just to have a nice low one cost spell in order to slow play a little bit. But I
Mhm.
definitely can see the benefit in what you're talking about and getting those additional boosts out, especially on the spindle harvesters that need it in order to activate that at noon resupply effect.
Yeah, definitely. Now, assuming Kojo lets this companion expedition go this turn, we will see the floral tent go away, and then Tasia, has to make a tough cut here. But if not, we're headed into the 5 mana turn with double resupplies out of Tasia, which is a pretty exciting prospect.
Yeah, especially with no cards in hand at this point, they will need the value from those
Yeah,
resupplies. And speaking of getting some value, we see a rare physical training allowing a card draw for the Kojo, which you don't see that much of in Bravos these days.
yeah. Physical training rare is sort of like a thing that has to be there. But of course, if you work your way through the game properly, you can get a ton of value off this. Something that people mentioned early on is just when Kojo's going first, you get that Buddha token, immediately turning into a 5/5 with some card draw, and you can even scale it up from there for a simple threat off of a single card, or spread the love among your team and aim for some double progressions.
We are going into a Buddha turn. We see a bunch of cards resupplied, including another Mana Reaping and a Persephone coming from the Tasia. Be interesting to see how that may be utilized as far as trying to get regions into forest.
Yeah, a tiny bit unfortunate to see both mana reapings here because these are some of the cards that I would be looking to move out of the reserve first, and the threats on hand are not super exciting. If we were to go like full tilt into pumping up this red and going for some helping hand plays to keep her around more or less indefinitely, that starts to look a lot better. But if Kojo's just going to play it safe here and not worry about red quite yet, these mana reapings just look a lot worse.
Yeah, Cole in the chat mentioning milk is interesting. I haven't seen very many folks
Yeah,
using milk that much in the Bravo setup. It seems like a lot of people are choosing not to go that direction, but it does seem like it would be a fun play, specifically with Buddha just getting that milk boost without having to worry about fleeting, but haven't seen that much played, at least in the online competitive setup or realistically even on in person at this moment, other than sealed. Sealed milk is nuts.
Yeah, milk is quite good there. Yeah, it's seeming like we're not having to deploy this Persephone quite yet, but at the end of this turn, we might be looking at a lot of resources lost from the Tasia here. So with 4 additional mana to go here, we might honestly just see sort of a value play from the mana reaping into taking out one of these threats and progressing on grass. But Koja's going to still progress on that side if we make that play.
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost don't mind it too much as a Kojo getting the mana reaping hit on me because the more mana I have, they're essentially additional resources that I don't normally get with card draw that I can play later on and hold off a little bit, especially still being ahead at this point, like you mentioned, and still getting the advance. And realistically, a lot that the Tasia has to get rid of, and the Spindle Harvester doesn't even have enough boosts in order to get the at noon resupply.
Yeah, when we looked at that Akesha player earlier, discarding 5 cards from reserve, it was hard to feel too bad for them with an additional 10 cards in hand, but they just kind of taken a bath here with how many cards we're having to lose. So it's a little tougher. And as you mentioned with Kojo, um, Kojo's keeping up in the resource game very well, cards in hand, and this physical training offering a card later on in the game. And then also with this extra resource from the mana reaping, courtesy of Tasia, we're feeling pretty good with how many cards we have available to us to progress the game state.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we do see the Persephone go away. We won't see how that is potentially utilized by the Tasia, unfortunately, but probably for the best. Not a lot of stats unless you really surprise your opponent with a forest checkup. And being played from reserve, it's not as easy to surprise your opponent unless they're just not paying attention. So instead, we will see the aloe vera come out. Not sure if they're going to use that extra to get something to get it anchored, and they will. So we'll see if the Kojo has any type of removal potentially to make that additional mana not quite worth it.
And indeed, we do a mana eruption here. We're going to use that Tasia orb. Go ahead and just chuck that right in Aloe Vera's face and knock her out. Um, this is a spot where I think that Persephone is not getting a whole lot of value based on progressing on the Hero Expedition in Water, which Aloe Vera is more than capable of doing on her own. Oh, but this would have been fantastic into the Aloe Vera plus Spindle Harvester. Now, Lyra Thespian's looking a little less exciting because we're not going to be getting those extra 2 boosts off 2 or more boosted characters. So just a pretty plain statted 2 cost 2/2/2.
Yeah, interesting that we potentially didn't see the Thespian come out first to get the boost from Tasia and get the guaranteed boosts from its effect, and just save the aloe vera potentially to when you're running low on resources to avoid any type of removal and force the Kojo to use the removal on the Thespian. But either way, we see a one for one here. Kojo inching that much closer to a victory potentially. And other than that, fairly even board state.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious if Tasia was a little nervous there about a sabotage effect coming from hand for Kojo, and it's just like I just got to jam this aloe vera here. Because another thing you might look at is something like putting out the floral tent to make sure that your anchored aloe vera will stay around. But if you make that play, it opens up your opponent to sabotaging the aloe vera and sort of negating that too.
Yeah, I
But
think at that point you kind of just have to measure what type of risk you can take. You know, at the very least, you have seen some sabotage, I thought. There is a Haven Bouncer in the reserve at this point from
hmm,
Kojo, and hope that they haven't hit anything else. I believe at the time they had 2 or 3 cards in hand, so definitely could have been a possibility. But, yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of stuff to consider, and they just chose to take the risk on any type of removal opposed to just immediately getting hit by sabotage.
Yeah, what I'm finding interesting with a lot of these games is the way that Kojo is structured right now from a game plan perspective. It seems like they have a lot of answers to a diversity of threats, or maybe it's just how many times we've run into the Tasia matchup. But it seems like Tasia is being forced to consider multiple options, and if they guess wrong, it's a pretty painful predicament for them.
Yeah, so the Kojo player at this point has used all their mana, has all their stats on the board, basically just daring the Tasia to try to catch up here. Because if they do not block at least one expedition, this will be a GG. We'll see what they
Yeah,
have left as far as in hand, despite having some decent statted characters in reserve.
common Tomoe Gozen is not something we see every day, and it is very cool. Love the artwork on that one, and a very unique stat lineup.
Always helpful hitting it just in time too, having 7 mana orbs, being able to have it played. We will have a Dracana come out to get the boost from Tasia, a Muna Caregiver, and then a Beauty Sleep.
Okay, so we worked our way out here, which is nice.
They
Yeah,
will have to contest with that 5/5/5 red next setup here, and unless they're keeping the Beauty Sleep, not sure what they would have to be able to stop it, and they do keep the Beauty Sleep. It will cost 3 from the reserve, though. Not sure if they're gonna want to use it in that capacity. At least the Thespian is a little bit more useful now with a boosted character on the expedition, being able to get that additional boosts if they decide to play it first. Not quite sure what they're going to do from hand here. They do decide to mana, interestingly enough.
yeah, and based on their earlier play, I wouldn't be surprised if once again they're a little bit nervous about some sabotage and decide to just jam the Thespian here to get those 5/5/5 stats out of that ability. It does leave them a little bit more vulnerable to a first piece of removal followed up by multiple threats, which is certainly in Kojo's ability right now. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we're headed from here.
Yeah, even with the Thespian, Kojo still rocking a lot of stats in the reserve there, potentially between the Tomo Gozen and the Pathfinder, being pretty heavy in mountain and water, and being on the single water setup in the companion side, that definitely would not hurt. But instead, we see the Beauty Sleep hit the red right away.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind this play. We're in tough straits right now as it is. Kojo's got this hidden information of cards in hand and plenty of resources to play them with. But certainly not hopeless here. We could see some progressions from Tasia, and we come in with a Sneezer Shroom, which is a great start, especially one that's going to grow on the following turn while that red will stay stagnant. But Diogenes appears to be given the GG here, so might see the writing on the wall as far as stat lines go.
Yeah, I was gonna say interesting idea to play the hand card first, opposed to just playing the Thespian, but it seems like they realized that they weren't gonna be able to catch up no matter what, and we just need one character from the Kojo in order to win one side and take the game, and we will see a unique Tooth Fairy come out when I leave the expedition zone, Sabotage, and I get a boost from hand. Producing a lot of saliva today. I feel like it's just filling up. Did I lose you? Looks like I may have lost you. May have lost my co-caster here, and he's back.
Oh, apologies there. Might have lost you guys for a second.
Yeah.
See, we did get the Tooth Fairy here, which did have access to a sabotage ability, but yep, didn't even need to come into play here. We were just able to close it out on stats alone.
Indeed, we do. We are in the Swiss round 4, in case you are unsure where we are at. This is the AWOL Season 2 Wednesday Weekly, number 2. We just watched one of the top 2 players so far as undefeated, play each other. And let's
It,
take a look at what we have left.
it's looking like table four is only about 43% in progress, and with two players that I don't believe we've watched tonight. So that might be a good direction to head.
Let's take a look here. Table 4, we do see an Afanis and a Sigismar.
Representing Brazil and Spain.
And interestingly enough, we do have an Ortis Bastion showing up.
Excuse me, Chile, apologies. I saw ES in my mind, made its own decisions.
España, but
Yeah.
they speak the same language. Either way, um, yeah, we have a Tasia, not a Tasia. We've seen so many Tasia, I defaulted to Tasia. And we have an Ortis Spy hitting that unique Spindle Harvester that is one of those fun Spindle Harvesters. Oh, no, it's when you play a spell, if I have 2 or more boosts, target character gains a boost. So not a card return spindle, but a boosty spindle.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you see a sticky threat like that, that's also going to provide boosts. Obviously, you like the buyback on things like, looping a helping hand, getting extra value out of a magical training, or even buying back and off you go for a cheaper play on the next turn. But sometimes you just get them with the stats. Boosts will do it.
Yeah, fairly slow game here, it seems like, in comparison to what we're used to. We do have a monolith out, as I mentioned previously, for the Sigismar. So
Mhm.
every small thing being played does get a little boosty boost. We'll see if the Afanis has anything to interact either with the monolith or just remove some characters on the expedition, but they're gonna opt to magical training to see what else they can draw.
Yeah, Monolith's definitely scary on the Afanis side. It just asks so many more questions of you as far as spreading out boost over multiple characters. If you do have that vanishing gate available, it's often good to just jam it there. But we do see that Afanis is a full two progressions ahead on the Tumult. So, maybe they just go uh, guns blazing all the spells on their Shroom and keep it around for an extra turn and see if that's enough to get there. Or if the follow up Small Step Giant Leap can do it for them.
We do see a Monolith Rune Scribe rare come from the reserve to add some more stats on the board. 3 mana left for the Afanis. Let's see what else they have. Decide to play a 1-cost Studious Disciple. I imagine we'll see another Afanis play here with nothing left for the Sigismar. See if they can catch up. In fact, they cannot, and they just decide to pass into the next day.
Yeah, definitely don't mind seeing a Studious Disciple in reserve. You never know when that next spell costing one less can be the difference between a successful turn and a not successful turn. Sometimes getting that Banishing Gate down to 3 and then progressing through your other plays really is the difference.
Indeed, it is. We do have a Faunus with a little bit of a hand advantage, but we'll more than likely have Sigismar with the board advantage with the beautiful monolith Ortis Bastion available. That is going to boost everything that is played. Be curious to see if the Sigismar decides to mana here or not, and they do. So we do have the Afanis up by 1 mana in total over the Sigismar and a big shroom contesting that one little recruit.
Yep. And it looks like Shrew will be joined by a 3-cost Ortis Overseer unique, 1/3/0 stat line. And when you play a spell, create a Soldier token in target expedition with an after you kicker cost from reserve. So this card could definitely just allow a contest on the companion side by itself, asking a question from Sigismar of, are you willing to commit resources there too? In the meantime, being able to boost up spell stats on either expedition after that token comes down. So definitely a cool card to see in the unique slot here. Anytime I am an Afanis player who can make tokens appear out of thin air, I feel pretty good.
Does usually feel good, especially when it comes in addition to some boosts that you may be able to apply to them with the Afanis ability, which is what we see there with the helping hand, despite not having any fleeting characters in order to hit with it. Just get some additional boosts out as we see more additional boosts coming out from the Sigismar because of the monolith. Will be interesting to see how this one lines up as we see a moth to a flame being played as far as Trial by Frost cards.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like in Altered is the ability to stack these triggers as they're coming into play. So, a nice little play from the Faunus player this previous move was to play the Helping Hand, create the token, and then use the Afanis ability to get that token additional boost. And we see that again with this Moth to a Flame, sort of shoring up both sides right now. With a single resource left, we might see the Studious Disciple discarded to make a spell in hand cheaper, or we would just play it out. That
Play it
makes
out, guarantee one side, and just let two other characters come down to the reserve, have to make a decision either way, with 3 cards in total in the reserve, and we see a teamwork training hit one of them, lowering everything and allowing the Sigismar to double advance and take the game.
very nice play here. That last card in hand teamwork training is the bane of blue opponents everywhere.
Gotta love the ability to have 2 cost removal, and now Ordis has even more, along with Tiny Jail, and Hypothermia is at 1 cost. As we get done with that game, switching on over here to see what we have left in round 4 of the Swiss. See if we're going to be hitting round 5 quite yet. We are not. We have 2 games left.
Yeah, it looks like both are in 86% area, so unlikely to see too much more gameplay. Do we want to check back in on Tay2 and Runefolk, or a first look at Kaifu?
Let's take a look at Kaifu. I think we know Runefolk is going to be playing some fun stall out with Akesha. Not quite sure
Ooh,
what we have here. We see
happy
an
to check in.
Arjun.
Yeah, Kaifu absolutely running the tables here with a ton of anchored abilities and also ahead one spot on the tumult.
A lot of characters out there. We will see the Mana Reaping come out, hit one of the Afanis characters. I'm curious to see if Afanis is going to even have anything to be able to play, which doesn't look like they do because they just play Helping Hand on the aloe vera, and that seems like it's a little bit of a GG.
A very respectful bow to end the game here with this helping hand.
Gives it up. We see Arjun take the W over Afanis. Casual Arjun being better than Afanis in this new gameplay.
Yeah, might have to check back in on Kaifu as we head into round 5 here. I would like to see a little bit more of what's making that deck tick. I saw some very interesting choices, things like the Aja, and I actually didn't even get to read the unique before the game was over. So excited to see more.
Yeah, we might be able to get the check in on them once we get past some of the top end folks here. We are in round 5 of the Swiss of the AWOL Season 2 Wednesday Weekly number 2. Thank you to everyone that has decided to join us today. I am Blue. This is. It's me
This
too,
is
and you.
me, Jalex.
I was pointing to you and everything, even though you can't see it. Either
I
way,
could not see it. I am the tabletop tinker on all the things, and very happy to be casting with you guys here today. Some great Altered being played so far. A couple of new strategies being made available from Trial by Frost, particularly some fun with the Rhyme cards and our Moth tokens out of Afanis. But also Floral Tent putting in a lot of work to glue some of these green decks together. So um, as we head into this round 5, hopefully we'll get to take a look at another new hero that hasn't had a chance in the spotlight yet. We've seen Gulrang. We saw a quick clip of Arjun. And basically every match today has seemed like a Kojo versus Tasia. So, you know, as we move forward, maybe some new blood will enter the arena.
well, I can guarantee you we're going to see at least one Kojo here because the one undefeated matchup that we have left, there's 3 total undefeated players, but one undefeated matchup in Zhind versus AQZ Freeloader. I'm almost positive Freeloader is running the Kojo, but let's take a look at what we have here so we can see who's going to be one of the only undefeated players coming into the final round. It's a double Kojo matchup as we talk about new heroes. We don't get them. Let's see what's
That's
going to happen here.
We do have a wonderful storyteller over here with Haven Serengar. We've got the common version, which is going to leave the expedition zone if it has fleeting draw card. So a nice little, like I said, another glue piece that's going to give some card advantage over the course of the game. A decent stat line to boost here.
Indeed, we do. We are currently seeing a double advance with the Kojo that had a Buddha turn on day one. And being one behind is the bottom Kojo with Freeloader getting their Buddha turn this time. Let's see if they can catch up. They have one Pathfinder in the reserve to be able to be played, which might not be a bad situation to be over on the hero expedition.
Yeah, good chance to block out on that side. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be fun to watch each of these Kojos take a two progression versus one progression uh, cadence throughout the match. This Kojo token, just or the Buddha token rather, just putting in a lot of work over the course of the game. Haven Bouncer here, knocking out that sand gear, guaranteeing one less piece of card advantage from the opponent. And not to say that resupply is bad, but the stat line on Axiom Salvager, not as exciting for what we need here.
We do see the Salvager come out anyway, and they hit a Fire Bunny, also known as a Fire Rabbit, but will not get the benefit of its boosting ability because it is being played from the reserve, and hand abilities do not work that way. But still one cost to be able to slow play if they wanted to. Speaking of Fire Bunnies, there's one for the bottom Kojo.
Yep. Looks like we're taking no chances here, giving our boost to the Buddha. And, we'll lose the card on this Fire Rabbit since it automatically gains fleeting, but decent chance here to score a double progression for Freeloader on the bottom, but Kojo and Buddha here.
Yeah, hot bunnies in your area are wanting to meet. We saw two of them straight in a row, and it's almost like they're multiplying. And we may be looking at a double advance here for the Kojo player on their Buddha turn. Sure looks like it is a possibility. We're still waiting on the 2 mana left that the top Kojo has, and they're choosing just to pass. They're gonna let that 2-0 happen.
Yeah, not the worst position to be in by any means. We're sort of looking at, once again, the card advantage battle here, but going into the turn with the free 2/2 is always going to mean a slight uphill battle for your opponent.
Almost even up at this point. Slightly more cards in hand for Zihind on the top Kojo, little less for Freeloader on the bottom Kojo, despite having more cards in the reserve. We do have the top Kojo on a Buddha turn, so we'll see if they can take advantage of it this time. And we do see one of those Serengers again.
Yep, Saringer showing up strong in this expedition that includes Forest Stat, so a good chance that we're moving forward there. We'll see how our bottom Kojo responds.
Waiting on
One,
seeing what they can do here. I imagine they're probably going to be playing something from reserve potentially, just to not give out too much in hand, unless they have something big in hand that I'm not aware of, maybe in a clue, but not quite sure yet.
yeah, I think this Pathfinder has a good chance to just slam the door on the hero expedition. Opponent's going to have a hard time getting to that 3 stat in water, and it looks like that's where we're going to head. But we also see that our hero is trying to advance on the Earth stat for our bottom Kojo, and Pathfinder is quite good there too.
We will see the physical training come out from Freeloader on the top Kojo. Gonna go ahead and boost up the Buddha, saying thank you to the little buddy. And we will see a Haven Bravos Bastion allow a resupply setting up for next turn for the bottom Kojo. And at this point, being the bottom Kojo, you'll take that 1 for 1 and setting up for some additional boosts being able to be played from reserve. And realistically, no way Freeloader on the top Kojo can stop you, especially playing the Saringer, because you're going to be playing first.
Absolutely. And a good use of mana on that previous playing that physical training does look like overkill at a baseline, but getting that free card draw to help inform following turns is definitely something where both players were clearly going to advance on one expedition or the other. So just having more information going into the next round is probably a good place to be.
Interesting to get rid of the physical training here, opposed to something like the Fire Rabbit. potentially trying to slow play as much as possible here, playing the resource game on who can play last and take the most advances on the tumult is what I have to imagine is happening here as far as what's in Freeloader's mind.
Yeah, I feel like Zine kind of has a raw deal on the top Kojo here, but we're looking at a water stat for the hero expedition, which is kind of a tough ask. We see that out of a Haven Bouncer from Reserve or a Bravos Pathfinder, but outside of that, it's kind of tough to progress on that side as long as freeloaders applying pressure on that side. Meanwhile, both players are fighting with whoever has the Buddha token on any given turn on the companion expedition. So that one's a little bit more contentious. So I like physical training as an option to sort of get us out of that water stat, but it also opens us up more to removal and yet another double progression. So a tough question to be asked at this point in the game.
For sure. It's also been fun to see a lot of rare havens come out for the Kojo players. It feels like for a while we got to see a lot of them switch over to common havens a lot of the time,
Yeah,
just preserving those additional rare slots for things like rare mana eruption or something to that effect. But now it seems like a lot of folks are preferring the rare version of the permanent.
yeah, those zones were feeling tight a lot of the time, and then, a lot of those rares were being used for shoring up weaknesses in the strategy. It felt like, but nowadays you see something like Haven Sarengar. If you happen to hit that off of your Bastion resupply, which in this case we did see that, suddenly you're looking at a 4/2/2 that's going to draw you a card on its way out the door. That looks a lot more powerful post Trial by Frost, and makes looking at Haven Bravos Bastion again a whole new thing. There's a lot of different texture to the game now with just a simple inclusion of this common.
Yeah, we do see the Mighty Jin come out for Freeloader on the bottom. Sigismar in the rare setup. We'll have to see if the top Kojo has anything that's going to be able to stop them from double advancing at this point. We know with what they have on the board, they can at least block on the left side. And speaking of milks that we had missed before,
Spotted.
um, milk finally spotted here on the Kojo on the top side of things.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look at that. The Haven Bouncer and the Bravos Pathfinder were the exact cards I called out as a way to bail us out of this water stat. And in fact, we got both of them that turn. So, and of course, nice to block this Mighty Jin from progressing. So, uh, trying to keep our freeloader, the bottom Kojo, from running away with the game here. And doing a good job so far, but unfortunately, that did cost two additional cards from hand, so we did lose a little bit of value on that reserve there. Freeloader, again, the bottom Kojo is quite ahead on cards at the moment, so has a little bit more flexibility in how they want to answer what our top Kojo Zine is doing headed into this turn.
Yeah, it's interesting that they decided to play both cards from hand there to lose 2 cards in the reserve after the cleanup, um, trying to prep for the next day with the milk. It almost feels like it would've maybe have been better to play the Saringer and the rabbit to still be able to block
Yeah,
and get a draw, but again, I don't know what they're running and what they're trying to set up for, so maybe I'm missing something. They are getting the Buddha getting boosted up from the milk here. Maybe that's exactly what they wanted, who knows?
I think they were just so enticed by our commentary about our Colano milk plus Buddha combo that the walls closed in. They didn't quite see the vision. So, but now they have the chance to progress on both expeditions, hopefully. So, we might be able to turn this thing around.
Indeed, we might. Limited resources to be able to do so, though, and
Yeah,
Freeloader's looking pretty good having the Haven out that's going to boost up that Mighty Jin and then having 4 cards in hand at this point while not going down on mana. And we will see an immediate sabotage on the Saringer. Does not feel good, but we do have one Mighty Jin of their own from the top Kojo, but I don't think it's going to be enough to completely stop freeloader from advancing at least one way.
yeah. Interesting to see how Freeloader proceeds here. If they have a one drop in hand, they might be able to score a double progression or at least do some blocking. But ultimately, you know, this 5/5/1 stat is enough to at least progress on the companion side and keep parity, at which point they're getting way ahead. So, and also we're going to get this extra resource off Mighty Jin becoming a mana orb this turn, so even more options going into the next turn. Mana really is such a bottleneck into how you have to play your turns out.
Yep, they do see the Fire Rabbit come out, deciding not to give it fleeting as it would have only tied them up on the hero expedition at that point, taking the one for one as you mentioned, and coming up on a Buddha turn. It definitely feels like a good spot for freeloader on the bottom Kojo rather, and we'll see what can happen. That Fire Rabbit getting an additional boost from the Haven was a good play earlier on, even though they didn't really need it. As we see Zeand taking some time to figure out if they're going to mana or not. We did see Freeloader deciding to mana the Mighty Jin rather than taking the card draw.
Yeah, I think at this point we're just looking at so many cards in hand versus the opponent. There's not a whole lot to worry about. We're looking at 6 stats out of the reserve just based on information we have, and there's still 3 cards and 5 mana to play with. So I don't mind going for that mana orb, and also opens up if you draw 2 bangers in the start of the next turn, you get to keep both of those, and you're not actually running behind on resources. So a good spot to be in for freeloader for sure.
For sure, we do see a Haven of Zeand's own on the top there, pulling out a Bravos Pathfinder that has seasoned. And from hand, if you control one or more landmarks, draw a card. Obviously, not super beneficial at the moment, but at least they're getting some type of benefit from the Haven there. We'll see if it's going to be enough to catch up to Freeloader. At least with the milk out, they're going to get some additional boosts, but at this point, it looks like Freeloader is just focusing on the hero side opposite of the milk and just trying to get that one single advance and take the win.
Yeah, this Kojo causing us to split our attention, or this rather causing us to split our attention is definitely on the hero side here. Freeloader has both of the resources pretty well in hand. We're trying to advance on water or mountain here, and with 7 stats in both, it's a tough ask to get there. But indeed, we do see Tomoe Gozen out of hand, which would be enough for Bravos Pathfinder to overcome, but not enough to secure both expeditions. So it looks like Freeloader will be advancing here and securing the game. All right, can you folks hear me still? It seems like Blue might have gotten muted, or maybe it was my problem, but apologies if you lost me mid diatribe.
Am I connected now? Is it going?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Perfect. I got disconnected on my mic. I'm glad everyone can read lips. I'm not going to repeat myself. We have a game here of Kojo versus Sigismar. Unique Ortis Gatekeeper out, creates tokens, wonderful setup. We're going to an adjacent. It's a tough game here. It'll be interesting to see who's going to be able to take this one coming up on a Buddha turn.
Right, well, it's good to see this Mighty Jin coming out of hand here. It's pretty potent.
Gotta love the mechanical keyboard chat. Enjoy it.
Yeah, my bad, y'all. That was me typing SOS to blue, but we're all good now.
Yeah, just setting up, trying to do Morse code for the words that you weren't hearing on my end. We are probably coming into the final day of this matchup here, potentially with a player that will be playing Freeloader in the finals matchup of round 6. May see another mirror matchup of Kojo, or we may see Sigmar, or we may see something else. I don't know. Either way, we get to see another milk come out. Gotta love the milk. Does his body good.
Yeah, this is only what, the second milk of the night out
Only
of
a second milk.
X Kojos.
Yep. Only 2 milks for the night, which is really disappointing for all the milk advertisement that has been coming out in the 90s. But for now, not too bad.
You know, we'll take a serving size and only one candy bar. So our Kojos are eating good right now. Proud of them.
That's true. Only one candy bar. Gotta watch those calories. I wonder how much calories an Arcolano milk has. Can we see the nutritional facts on the back there? I don't think we can.
The
Either
real
way,
question, how many percent is it?
yeah, right. What percent is Arcolano milk? Ortus Gatekeeper unique that I mentioned before. It is a token generator and it creates an artist recruit on the other expedition. So we'll have to watch out for that. We do see that play that you mentioned earlier of Haven resupply into a specific Trial by Frost card.
I think we've got to report this bug directly to Board Game Arena because Haven smacking a Sarengar out of deck is too good, and it seems to happen too often. I say this as an Arak player who flips Hydrocana 50% of the time, and that should not be investigated whatsoever, but this Haven thing is worth looking into.
And Sigismar doesn't seem to have anything left with 3 mana and will give it up to the Kojo player as we see another Bravos victory in this Wednesday matchups here.
All right. Chat is seeming to say that we are locked for the finals, but it is slightly hidden behind my camera, which I now know is way too close to my keyboard. So I cannot get the final confirmation for sure.
Yep, it looks like Hyper K was the other undefeated player that was beating one player that had 1 loss. So we will see a freeloader versus Hyper K matchup. I'm not quite sure what Hyper K was playing, so we'll see here in the final round 6 of the Swiss. We still have 2 games actively going on. Let's take a look at table 13.
Yeah, all
Table
right.
13, which has the strawberry player in French and Sarcasm. Honestly, tier 1 names in this matchup here. So glad to let them be on stream here real quick as I switch over. A lot of stuff in reserve for the Crowbar Hero
Yep.
and
Seeing
including
that.
a Joyride.
Yeah. I mean, if you're rich, flaunt it. Use this Joyride to discard one of these cards that's going to be gone from the end of turn from reserve, anyways, and get some boosts out of it. This card is throwing the wealth of Ren and Crowbar in our face, but we'll accept it.
Interestingly enough, we do have the Icebound Tundra available for the Aurak, taking advantage of those base statistics of 0, getting a double counter type of setup between their entertainment counter, performance counters, and trial counters. Well, why they all have different we need to have like different like counters for different named counters. That would be cool. I know someone mentioned that in the Discord. Bring it up again. We need to have more arguments in the general.
Yeah, I have long advocated changing the name of all counters to beans and just calling it there. So
That's fair.
yeah, this Icebound Tundra is definitely interesting as a 2/2 with when I play a character in a region type where its stat is 0, gain the trial counter, and then of course gaining 3 trial counters means sacrifice me, create a 5/5, and then do our best Hathor impression of returning a card from reserve to hand. So an effect that Lyra players are always happy to have. definitely nice to bounce something back and get two aura counters out of a low cost character, which is then going to help you get that free advantage later.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the crowbar decides to play here between the joyride and the winter outfits. I have to imagine it's going to be the winter outfits to boost up their companion side, but the Auroch still has 5 mana to work with, so they may not want to take that risk, and they do decide to go with an off you go.
Yeah, off you go, looking pretty good here.
They will be out of mana with that though, and we could just see the Sandman come right back out. And
Yeah, Sandman
instead,
coming back out is good, but I mean, with 9/9/11 on the hero side and Fen at match point, we're definitely looking a little tough.
yeah, they do decide to roll on the Trickster, only getting the 1 boost, definitely not helping their situation. 1 card left in hand. Who knows what they have left? Is it going to be enough? Probably not. But this is also probably the last game of Swiss round 5 of the AWOL Weekly, Wednesday, number 2.
Yep, we showed up to spend the resources and play the cards. Might as well play all the cards.
Fraise rhubarb, also known as strawberry, I believe, of some sort. I don't remember. Um,
Yeah, strawberry rhubarb.
and the sarcasm, top tier names in North America. Glad they can both join. We do have a Trial by Frost Persephone come out in the rare, making everything green. It's still not going to quite matter.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
we're looking
of
at a
all the
GG.
cards to find in that deck, that's definitely one that like could give you the out. But yeah, we're just seeing aloe vera is anchored from the previous turn, or just too much gas here.
And we see in chat if Freeloader loses the finals, which he always does, he's kicked. We're going to hold Keylon Guy to that. Make sure someone is recording the chat. If Freeloader does not win, he is out of AQZ. He is officially going to be quarantined from the quarantine zone.
I'm starting to feel like the stream team has become drunk on power, and I'm waiting to get my drink.
Oh, it's not. It's not the stream team. I believe this is from their team AQZ. So you're
Oh,
good. You're good
okay.
for now.
All right. I'll slip
Just
back into the shadows for now.
yeah, you're good. Just if you want to grab a drink before you get into the finals, feel free.
Yeah. Ah, we have more Dr. Pepper left than I thought. I'll take that. Not sponsored. Could be sponsored.
Any type of particular type of Dr. Pepper or just regular Dr. Pepper?
We're on the zero sugar today. It's
Good.
not helping, but it tastes good.
Yeah, they've come really a long ways with zero sugar sodas. I remember back in the day, diet was just ass, and now zero sugars have really made a lot of headway. Still horrible for you with all that stuff, but you know what? It feels better having zero sugar.
It's true. Diet, unfortunately, still ass, as we found out. Got a diet Dr. Pepper at the restaurant recently, and was like, "This ain't the heat. Dr. Pepper zero sugar can get away with it, but diet just doesn't do it for me."
And with that game ending, we are in the Swiss round 6 coming into the finals. We will have Hyper K 888 versus AQZ Freeloader. 1 Kojo with Freeloader. I'm not sure what Hyper K is playing, but we'll find out here momentarily. Any thoughts as we come into the final matchup of round 6 of the Swiss?
Yeah, did we actually note what Hyper K is playing at this time?
I don't know, but I don't think we've seen them play at this point. But we'll take a look here once the game art is done loading.
Yeah, I'm anxiously refreshing my browser, and hope you guys are staying tuned as we're heading into this last little bit. As far as thoughts on the final match, cool to see. These teams are showing up and showing out. They've got some folks who are progressing very deep into the tournament, showing the power of collaborating with other players and learning the best strategies. If you have time to sit down with someone and get on a Discord call or just jam games and talk about strategies as you're playing through, it can get you a lot farther than just constantly playing games on your own. So you have a chance, join a team or make your own, make some new friends, because playing these games, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, make a one-man wolf pack, make your own team. Who knows? Speaking of teams, since they did make the finals, I guess we can talk about the Altered Quarantine Zone. They're also known as AQZ. Their quote here put down by Keelan Guy himself is testing and tryharding with trustworthy people and some memes. Founders are the Keelan Guy and Pluka, the folks that we all know from way back when with the season one of AWOL, Pluka, the Waru master of things. They're looking to have online dominance and some fun and other info. The Keylon guy and Freeloader are currently neck and neck for the overall record, highest quantity of deck entries on 39cards.com. So there you go.
That's pretty impressive. I am looking forward to at some point being able to search by player on 39cards.com. I think that would be a really cool way to track through the teams and see what all is going on as far as, the leaderboard, so to speak, on those situations. But I do see round six has queued up, and we are in fact looking at matchup number 100 of Tasia versus Kojo this evening. Things are off to a good start here. It looks like Hyper K has found their unique Sneezer Shroom, gains anchored from hand, and from reserve, it gives a character with hand cost 3 or less other than itself anchored. So a lot of anchored going into these first couple turns.
We do have a unique from Freeloader in the reserve of the Bravos Rescuer, 2 costs from hand, 4 costs from reserve, 2 stats across the board. From reserve, you may give target fleeting character 2 boosts rather. And it also, when my expedition moves forward, you may discard a card from your reserve. If you do, draw a card. So a lot of effects there.
Yeah, I think lots of good value. I just wish it was quicker to read.
Yeah. Either way, we do see a 2-for-1 for the
Yeah,
in the advantage of Tasia. Probably not the ideal situation for freeloader. You're typically trying to get ahead as Koja, especially on a Buddha turn, but instead only getting 1 advance here, so they're going to need to make up some ground on some off Buddha turns.
yeah, these early turns in the Tasia versus Kojo matchup seems to be Kojo getting a double advance and then Tasia sneaking in for a single advance on the first turn. But this Tasia is kind of flipping the game on its head and asking Kojo to show up a little harder in upcoming turns, or else they're going to get quickly left behind.
Indeed, with freeloader going down, probably sweating at the thought of getting kicked from the quarantine zone, probably for the best getting kicked out of a quarantine zone. But either way, we're looking at another anchored character being played by the Tasia. We'll see how freeloader can respond.
Yeah, freeloader being put under undue pressure might be the difference maker in this matchup. We'll have to see.
Typically, freeloader tends to lose as soon as we put him on stream. So has able to overcome that. Maybe they can overcome this curse as far as being baited into getting kicked out of the team, but maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, there's definitely some pressure that comes along with a feature match. So I feel for freeloader there. I've been in that situation in other games, and I was more than happy to punt away any chance I had at winning the game just based on the pressure. So
We
uh,
do see a rare tiny jail hitting that anchored Jerkana. Good spot to hit it at. Can't hit the sneezer shroom because it's a little bit too much as far as stats, but the Jerkana was free game.
yeah, pretty good to see here. That was definitely going to be a little harder to overcome, but now looking into a simple 2-1-1 off of this Chiron, we've got a good chance to make some progress on the hero expedition as Kojo.
Yeah, I tend to prefer Kojo Cole in chat, but we're still we got to keep the time zone of North America and South America taking the wins on Wednesday, so I can't let someone from Switzerland take the win on a Wednesday tournament, unfortunately. Even though Freeloader is playing the Kojo, but either way, what can you do? Westwill in chat finally. Westwill, I'll have you know, I don't remember if you were the one who said it or someone else did. I've been calling that one Lyra hero Crowbar because that's the name of it now, not Finn. Either way. Was that a 1-for-1 there? It was.
It was, yep. So Tasia maintaining that lead, but Kojo back in control of the active player token, which means Buddha is on his way. And we might get a little bit more pressure from Kojo this turn to try to remake up that space.
Still have that unique Sneezer Shroom available to the Tasia coming from reserve, unless it gets sabotaged right now. We'll see if it does, but if not, I have to imagine we'll see it being played.
Yeah, and Sneasel Shroom's effect from reserve to give a hand cost 3 or less character other than itself gain anchored does mean that it's ripe for a sabotage effect. And it seems like Hyper K might be thinking that exact same thing, leading off with a Spindle Harvester to, maybe feign that they don't care about the Sneasel Shroom as much as they do. We'll see.
We do have a fairly big Mighty Jin being played, getting a boost due to the Haven Bravos Bastion. We'll see what Freeloader can do with the remaining mana. Has to make up some ground here, especially on a Buddha turn.
Yeah. Any predictions on if Mighty Jin is going to be going to mana or drawing a card on this turn based on the current predicament on the tumult?
I have to imagine they're going to prefer to go to mana. Seems like Freeloader has prioritized having the additional mana over the card draw, especially on a fleeting setup of the Mighty Jin, but maybe not. We do have a Tooth Fairy coming out that's going to, when I leave the expedition zone, sabotage, and it gains one boost from hand.
Yeah, I love these when I leave sabotages. They're definitely a little less effective at, what we'd call spot removal, but when it comes to taking out a key threat that's on the board and will not be later, I've really liked having some of these unique tooth fairies that have that ability. They're quite strong.
Yeah, I have a Tanuki that does when I leave sabotage as well that I like to use. Doesn't feel as good, especially when you're playing up against a Tasia that is able to anchor a lot. You don't
Mhm.
typically get to hit the character that you want to hit, but either way, getting to hit that Sneezer Shroom was not a bad setup for Freeloader as we go one for one again. But they will definitely need to look to try to get catch up, at least prevent the Tasia from advancing here pretty soon, which is going to be pretty hard with those anchored from the previous day characters on the hero side.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a baseline at noon. This is going to go up to a 566 stat in the hero expedition. We see that resupply and the nurture means that we're automatically like with a single resource just crushing on the hero expedition. So Koja might have to give that one up for this turn since both those characters are losing anchored and hope for another day. As we see this Muna Druid that from anywhere is going to give one target character a sleep and may gain 2 boosts. So a nice off-color Sandman here, and has the typical Muna Druid discard to give anchored by discarding it from reserve. So we might unfortunately see this Dracana sticking around for one more turn, which spells a lot of trouble for Kojo.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it's going to be dependent on what freeloader plays here, on whether or not we're going to see that discard from the druid, or if we're going to see it being played in order to sleep whatever freeloader has out and try to go 2-0. But we're still waiting. We may get to see a card from hand opposed to seeing that unique Tooth Fairy right away. Doesn't really need to be played at this moment, specifically because there's really no sabotage available to the Tasia and it's Muna, so you're never really worried about sabotage that much anyway.
Yeah, if we play the new, I can't remember his name right now. I'm going to call him Snow Cow. Snow Cow that can exhaust a card. I could definitely see that hitting the Muna Druid here and blocking on the Aloe Vera side of things. But looks like we're going to start off safe with this Tooth Fairy and hopefully snipe one of these characters on their way out this turn.
Still will need to get enough stats in order to block the 2-0, which I imagine Freeloader has available. Now we'll see what the Tasia player on Hyper K888 is going to go with, and they are in fact going to go with just playing the unique Muna Druid in order to send freeloaders one character to sleep. Why am I having trouble with saying C's? I think it's because my mouth is dry. Let me take a drink.
Yeah, sounds good. What we're seeing on the companion side right now for Tasia is playing into water and mountain, which means that very few cards in Kojo are going to be able to answer that cleanly and block the progression. But one of those cards being Mana Eruption to eat the aloe vera, preventing some additional resources next turn, and also lowering the stats enough that we might be able to contest this still. A single Bravos Pathfinder from hand right now will block our opponent, even if it doesn't progress us. But it
and
looks like instead of that, we're playing that Mighty Djinn.
it's all he had, and it's too bad realistically too, because if Freeloader had anything else to block there and go one for one, they were looking pretty good into that next day, having a slept character and nothing anchored for the Tasia player. But either way, we'll see Hyper K take the victory on a 2-0. Freeloader gets kicked out of AQZ. Too bad. I guess you are no longer allowed in the quarantine zone. Good games nonetheless, as the Americas take Wednesday. I'm going to count Brazil because it is in fact South America.
We'll bundle them in with the Americas. Poor freeloader, always a brass bug, never a hive.
Womp womp womp. Either way, that was the finals of the Altered Weekly Online League, also known as AWOL Season 2, Wednesday Weekly number 2. Let's see if we can get one more game in before we wrap up the stream. Let's see what we have available. Any big names that we want to get on stream before we close things out?
Rolling my way down. I don't know about big names. We've already seen Fraze and Gato, but they are pretty low in progress. That might be an option.
Let's watch
Alternatively,
let's watch
what's that?
Kaifu on the Arjun. We wanted to look at
Oh,
more
please, yeah.
Arjun. Yeah. So table 13, playing up against Kohlrabi, the worst player in altered history.
Cole moving to the dark side and feeling the pain of his choice.
Trying out Nephanis, has a unique spindle harvester using the when I leave the expedition zone. If I have 2 or more boosts, you may return a card, just like Cole to use really good cards and still do bad. Haha,
This
you
one
suck.
looks almost identical to the one I have right now. Pretty, pretty decent character there. I see Kitsune on the side of Arjun, allowing each player to draw a card when it comes in from hand. Also appears in the rare Bravos art of Tiny Jail. Couldn't think of her name earlier, but when I saw that card, I was immediately feeling for my girl here.
We do have that unique Moona Merchant. When another character joins your expedition, you may put a card. Stop moving. Put your card from your hand in reserve. If you do, up to one target character with hand cost 3 or less, other than me, gains anchored. A lot of words, but
Mhm.
still good card nonetheless. And we also have that unique Dracana.
Yeah, someone in chat called out earlier some unique and interesting Dracanas from Kaifu here. So cool to see one in play as we head into this match. And good that both players are at reasonable parity here when it comes to card advantage, and also board state's a little bit behind, but I think Afanis can always pull back from this position for sure.
Yep, still plenty of cards to go through, especially when you're drawing a bunch and boosting up that Mage Dancer to potentially 3 boosts to get that at dusk draw card. Still has plenty of mana to make that happen as we see an Aloe Vera come out here. See if the Moon Merchant effect is going to be triggered. It is indeed going to happen to anchor a card. Which one is it going to be? It's going to be that unique Dracana, because at noon you may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, draw a card.
Kohlrabi with some jokes in the chat here. If we want to share a card with Arjun because he has so many, but I think I see some good options for plays here off this Beauty Sleep. I definitely like what this Moon Merchant is bringing to the game state.
Not much left here that the Argent can do. Could Beauty Sleep, but the question is, will they?
I'm almost
And
tempted to Beauty Sleep my own Aloe Vera here, but that would um, cause a problem with the Spindle Harvester. So, are we willing to trade a progression here, or do we just try to stand firm?
let's see what they target. Maybe the
Yeah.
Spindle Harvester. They decide to go with the Mage Dancer. They don't want to see any more boosts on that Mage Dancer after spells are played. Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And
As
this
The
Dracana here is going to be a nice little card advantage engine for the next turn, but oh, maybe not. Let's see what the freeze does. Yep, he's out of here.
Interesting. Don't see a lot of freezes. Leave it up to Cole to play a card that no one else uses, but it looks like a cool card based off of the art. Love a freeze.
They did my boy dirty.
But we will see a double advance from the Arjun, putting Cole in a rough spot here.
Yep.
Doesn't really have to worry about anything as far as a Lyra Festival, especially with only needing one more advance from the Arjun to take the W and be in a good spot in general.
Yeah, I mean, Cole can sort of potentially pivot to full control here. We've got a removal spell in the reserve, plenty of resources to go in hand, and staring down this Arjun that doesn't honestly have a ton going on. That could change at the drop of a hat if we were to use this Kitsune to anchor something. But yeah, I mean, that's, at match point, Cole's only goal here is to stop the progression. And it seems like we might have a better chance of that than in some other game states.
I wouldn't count on Cole to do anything at this point. I think he's internally wanting the Argent to win. He can't help but letting the Muna take the W, or he's just not going to be able to win. Either way, he can use that excuse if he wants to. You're welcome. But we do see that rare so that you've mentioned before, as far as being a little fun card that allows you to anchor characters with its support ability.
Yeah, typically affected by cooldown, but when going directly into reserve like this, you don't have to worry about that.
But it's instead will just be played to get a boost. Nothing to anchor at this point with that off you go hitting the unique Moon Merchant.
Yeah, not the most exciting play, but a stat is a stat here. And if we're trying to advance on Earth for the Argent player, a 4 is nothing to sneeze at.
Sneezer Shroom, but I don't think they're playing one. Either way, looking pretty good for Cole at this point, but we do see a mana reaping. Let's see where it goes. It hits the Mage Dancer. So Cole can at least get a 1-0 here with an off you go play, or they can play something else from their hand. Not quite sure what the options are for them.
Yeah, off you go definitely feels like a, a very safe way to go here, getting that one progression. And now we're looking at an Argent with literally 0 resources available to them. So, ooh, interesting.
Decides instead to draw and fill up the reserve that much more.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2 additional cards in hand, and we do discard a couple things, but we can keep an off you go for the following turn. And again, with our opponent only having access to 2 cards off the top of their deck going in, assuming they don't mana, we do look to be in control of this game state. So Arjun might have to take a turn off and just try to come back super hard next time, but that does open the door to a double progression from a Faunus. So we're in a very delicate dance here.
Yeah, prioritizing the card advantage in hand opposed to just removing all resources to the Arjun. So the Arjun will at least have the ability to advance here on the companion side. We'll have to worry about that off you go from reserve, but have to imagine I'm preferring that opposed to just not having anything at this point and only having 2 cards in hand. But we'll take a look. Plenty of mana for the Aphanis on the top, only 8 for the Arjun, but probably enough to play the 2 cards in hand.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear Cole's thoughts after this match about keeping the second common magical training over the second off you go. Having access to 2 removal spells going into a turn with 11 mana feels really powerful in this state. And the magical training just being a 3-cost draw card is a little less exciting unless we're like buying that back, for example, with a Flamel. So the texture of their hand will be very interesting to know.
Do you see rare field reinforcements being played, getting a draw, getting a recruit that was also boosted up because of the Aphanis ability, so that's fun. And equally, we have an Harvest coming out, which is probably the best thing that the Argent could hope
What a
for as
draw.
far as having more resources.
Yeah, what a draw. Very, very good hit right now. And Aja here just incredible stats heading into the companion zone to try to keep that at bay. And notably, not affected by an off you go out of reserve. So Cole would have to come up with another answer or just throw enough spells at this problem to grow the Order's recruit past the threshold there to block.
Yeah, Kaifu is still in a spot at this point where they just need one advance to take the game,
Hmm.
whereas Cole needs two or at least one in stopping Kaifu, but does have more resources to work with here. Not quite sure what is left in hand for the Arjun. I have to imagine we're probably looking at a hand play opposed to just another harvest from reserve. But that Mage Dancer is probably a good one to have. Not quite sure as far as the decision to play it to the left, potentially to prevent that unique that he knew was going to be played. Who knows? And it is a Dracana. Gains anchored from anywhere at noon. You may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, resupply.
This looks so similar to the previous Dracana that I was frantically checking if we had somehow reshuffled our deck and gotten back to this card already. But yeah, no, these Dracanas are the truth. They're going to keep the cards flowing for Arjun, and that's going to help with the hero ability to keep characters around. So very synergistic uniques for this deck. Very cool to see.
We do see Moth to a Flame come out, setting up the double advance for Cole, opting for an arena setup here, opposed to just straight up trying to take a W with anything else. They're going to helping hand to give some more boosts out. The question is there one more helping hand in hand?
One more helping hand sealing the deal would be quite impressive.
Or Beauty Sleep, I guess, would work as well. And Cole passes instead. And
All
for
right,
some
Cole. We're going to be discarding 4 cards from reserve heading into sudden death against an absolute heater of a Dracana. Cole, Cole is reveling in how much we are wanting to see what's going on here. So
yeah,
he's a chef on full display.
I'm genuinely baffled by Cole's Afonis play here.
Sometimes you don't go for the best play, you go for the coolest play. And I think we're in the realm of coolest play right now.
You know
Moths to a
what's
Flame here seems insane. Some of the other options there seem insane. And we are once again keeping the one common magical training. I feel like he's doing this on purpose now.
you know what else is cool? Winning. But,
True.
Cole doesn't like doing that very often either way. But despite that, has a Mage Dancer potentially to be played here. One of the best characters that you can have on an Afonis. We'll see what else happens. We get a Harvest Blade. And a Kodama is not a bad one to hit.
Definitely not. Some part of this makes me feel like Cole is actually doing a crowbar cosplay and just flaunting his wealth of 12 mana at this point to take over the game in this last couple minutes.
Did
But
he mana again that turn?
he did.
Oh my god, stop it.
Didn't
I
you
was like
know?
I was like
Aphonis is a resource denial deck. You just end the game with your opponent having nothing, and maybe I forgot Akasha existed. It's fine.
and of course we see the wonderful 3 mana magical training play that everyone looks for.
Bull is very offended. We have stuck our nose in his chat box, but we have to. We have to try to get some glimpse of what's going on here. Very
Sabotage from the
rude
Tooth
tooth
Fairy,
fairy.
preventing some more boosts from coming out. Plenty of mana left for Quell, especially if you decide to mana every turn.
I think the power move from Cole is to concede the match by playing a small step giant leap. If we can't win, we can lose with the story. But it
Oh
looks like we
boy,
still
another Mage Dancer. Now pass. Pass, Cole, you won't.
it's helping hand time.
You
He
won't.
said,
Pass.
I can't count. Let's see if I win. The Cree of Storm players everywhere, for all of you Magic players out there. As I understand, Keelan, Guy, and I might have something to talk about in a future session. But yeah, double helping hand here more than seals the deal. especially after Arjun has passed priority for the turn. Um,
Womp womp.
yeah. Mage Dancers sort of feel like when you accidentally luck into some sort of crazy combo in a Balatro hand, where you're like, oh, I didn't know that I could actually do that. Suddenly I have way too many points. Helping Hand and Double Mage Dancer will make you feel that high.
Yep, Cole takes the win there in the tiebreaker. Good for him. That was definitely one of the games of all time in Altered History.
I want to know if the Helping Hand was top decked off of that magical training. And if it wasn't, I need to know the last card in hand was a Small Step Giant Leap. So he had every base covered. He could lose in style or he can win off the top deck.
Apparently, he
I
doesn't even run small steps, so he's adamantly against it. Apparently, but we do still have one game left. I guess we can see if it's
sure. Let's rush it through.
still being played. Actually, it just ended. Jk.
Rip.
Um, that was the end. I believe. Do we have any more games? No more games?
I'm not
Games?
seeing any.
Yep,
The
we
folks
do.
on the wrong screen.
99%, way at the bottom. Let's see if it's actually still going. Go to game real quick.
Come on. Nope,
And it
game is in.
just ended. Tiebreaker, Afonis takes the win. You guys can take a look at it real quick. Ha ha ha. And then we'll go back. That was, in fact, the last game. The last one we actually got to watch was Cole taking a victory rather, which is a rare sight to see. So I'm glad we could get it on stream. Let's take a look at the tournament results as I pull it up here. Let's make sure it's shown correctly. It is indeed. Do you want to give a breakdown on what we saw as far as the tournament results?
Yeah, so a lot of specifically Kojo and Teja matchups throughout coverage. So definitely a lot of good representation by those characters, the heroes rather. As we headed into the final rounds, Kojo seemed to have the answers for everything, whether that was just good top decks or good glue with the new common from Trial by Frost, allowing you to draw a card, reintroducing some texture from Beyond the Gates cards. Haven Bravos Bastion as a rare looking a lot better these days, just based on some of the new inclusions. We did get to see some milk and cookies off of the Arcolano milk and the candy bar. And also, I got to see my first sled double progression, which was very nice. So, overall, a really good tournament. Really cool that, if you look at the top tables of 39 cards, there's been a lot of Sigismar, a lot of Afanis, a lot of Ren. We're starting to see the shakeup a little bit. Kojo coming in hot in the past week, and Tasia, who's been a consistent player with one or two representatives in the top eight, now seeming like she's heading up in representation and therefore more likely to hit those top cuts more often. How about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. It was cool to see all the different setups here. We got to see a lot of Tasia versus the Bravos hero of Kojo. I'll give a quick breakdown of what we have as far as first through 16th. We have Hyper K 888 taking the win on the Tasia over AQZ Freeloader, who is now just Freeloader, no longer AQZ, if I'm to understand the Keylon guy correctly. Who got second on the Kojo. Easy Lopez 15 is third. Belt 91 fourth, also a Kojo if I'm correct. A Claudius, there we go. Dimogenes in sixth. Starshine Simon and Cake rounding off the top eight rather in seventh and eighth. Going all the way down to top 16, we have Zihin that we got to watch a little bit in ninth. Anthonius 333 on 10, Cal Marquez 11th, March 12th, AQZ, the Keylon guy, despite taking that early loss to our fearless leader Starshine Simon, still manages to get top 16. Fraze Rhubarb, also known as Strawberry Rhubarb, in 14th. Bria Danwater, 15th, also a Kojo player that has done quite well previously. And AWOL, the last player in the 16th spot, rounding us out. Good overall tournament. Glad everyone that could show up and watch us. Glad I can have a new co-commentator to talk about some games. Any final thoughts as we wrap up the stream?
No big final thoughts. Congratulations to everybody who made it into the Invitational tournament based on tonight's standings. Definitely excited to continue opportunities of coverage in the future and to see who else is coming into AWOL to help commentate. It'll be good to get a mix up of some new casters, and also as we watch this meta continue to evolve. Like I said earlier, players are still in the early stages, getting some new cards, opening those new uniques, and finding what's best with all the different cards that they own. So, as those results develop, people make some breakthroughs on heroes. We see folks start to copy and then innovate on these new Kojo and Tasia decks. We might see a true monster come out of the meta, and I, for one, want to be here to witness it.
Yep, that's a lot of stuff to look forward to in general, especially with the new set. Hyper K in the chat. Congrats on the W on the Tasia. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone once again for showing up. Be sure to subscribe to this new AWOL channel. We will be here every week, twice a week, hopefully. If anyone does not show up for certain days, I will be sure to hit them as hard as possible virtually and ban them forever or not. I don't know. We'll see what punishments can be dealt out. Past that, like I said, be sure to subscribe. Also, take a look at our socials that have been popping up below as far as the individual casters. Myself, Blue Oak TV, you can catch me there on YouTube. If you want to do a quick plug for yourself, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Jalex at the Tabletop Tinker on all the things. Getting started with revamping my COVID era Twitch channel and also YouTube with the goal of showcasing some altered gameplay and game design. With the new beta coming up for the marketplace, I will be doing a zero to hero session of helping folks learn how to operate the marketplace and get into the game, followed by gameplay on BGA with a new hero. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, or you've got someone who hasn't quite taken the step into Altered and wants the confidence to watch someone else take those same steps with them, please send them my way.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure that you take a look at his channels and get him some more money to get a new camera that wasn't from the 1970s so it can fill out the full screen. Either
Built on
way,
original Model Ts.
there you go, built on original Model Ts. You can also subscribe to mine. Check out my new video coming out that came out today rather, going over a recap of the Italian tournament that we mentioned during the stream. Over 100 players, I think it was 128. Good tournament to check out if you're interested in competitive play other than AWOL in person. Past that, that's going to end the stream. Thanks for everyone that joined. I'm going to close things down and I'll see you in play on the next day.